Chapter 1660. Going together, there were also some Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints who remained in this world. They all showed expressions of fear as the pressure was far greater than anything they had ever felt from the Spirit King. God King. Jian Chen stared at the green light from Three Saint Island and murmured to himself. He had seen God Kings many times. Both Protector Xueqi and Adriana had come down to this world, but this was the first time he had seen the true might of a God King. They could annihilate universes with a twitch of their finger. In the depths of space, a violet sea of lighting gradually formed. Thick bolts of violet lightning crackled as they rapidly approached Adriana with an indescribable presence of the world. Now that Adriana's strength as a God King was exposed, the world no longer accepted her, so judgment descended. The judgment contained extraordinary power. Let alone the fact that Adriana was weakened and unable to use her full strength, even when she was at peak condition, she definitely would have passed away from such a trial, unless she used the treasure that the experts of the God Clan had bequeathed to her for the exact purpose of protecting her from the judgment of the world. However, before the violet sea of lightning had approached Adriana, the War God Hall had already entered the tunnel to the Saints' world while shrouded by the presence of light. It vanished from the world, and with its disappearance, Adriana's presence vanished as well. No longer able to sense Adriana's presence, the sea of violet lightning gradually dispersed in the end. Very soon, the universe returned to its previous peaceful state. Jian Chen sat on Three Saint Islands silently as he drank by himself. He gazed at the calm space in a daze. He knew that Tai Ta had left. He had left this world, and he had no idea when they would meet again. Perhaps they would not meet again. The countless people kneeling towards War God Mountain rose on the wasteland continent. All of them were filled with a heavy reluctance to part with the War God. The War God Hall that had basically become the representation of the wasteland continent had vanished, now replaced by a golden statue. The statue stood 300 meters tall and seemed lifelike as if it was Tai Ta himself. A mysterious power circulated within it. It stood there silently with an indomitable spirit, radiating with power. It shone with golden light, which illuminated the surroundings. This was a statue that Tai Ta had left behind. The statue contained his power. It became the new symbol of the 100 races and was also a powerful defense, used to protect the 100 races. The uproar caused by Tai Ta's departure settled very soon. His departure made all his good friends feel depressed, while the people who had no ties to him did not care at all. At most, they would just think back to when Tai Ta led the 100 races against the world of Forsaken Saints and the crisis of the world and sigh as a result. Meanwhile, all the Forsaken Saints living in the other world basically felt relieved and joyful for Tai Ta's departure, without any exception whatsoever. Tai Ta's departure meant that there was one less powerful Origin Realm expert for the world. The world of Forsaken Saints had gained a complete, firm footing in the world of the Tian Yuan continent now. Whether it was the Tian Yuan continent, Beast God continent, Wasteland continent or the Sea Realm, they had gained a sizable piece of territory in all these places. They did not continue to expand unceasingly, as the upper echelon of the foreign world understood that although Jian Chen had told them that they could buy land as they pleased, expanding too recklessly would lead to the interference of Origin Realm experts. The Forsaken Saints were currently attempting to unite with the people of the world completely. The people in charge of the world of Forsaken Saints did not wish to become locked in a dispute with the Origin Realm experts of the other world as it would be detrimental to their race's future developments. Aside from that, they were not overly ambitious in the first place. They only wished to find a safe place for their weaker clansmen. The sainthood experts would mostly remain in their original world. With the entry of the Forsaken Saints, the world of Forsaken Saints also opened itself up to the people of the four races. The abundant energy of the world and origin energy in the world of Forsaken Saints had drawn over quite a few sainthood experts across the four races. Apart from that, many of the heavenly resources and treasures in the world of Forsaken Saints could not be compared to the other worlds as their origin energy had never run out, allowing them to grow in an environment rich in origin energy across so many years. Just this was enough for many sainthood experts to treat the world of Forsaken Saints as a holy land. Many sainthood experts set off by themselves in search of fortuitous encounters to increase their strength. Although the laws of the world were gradually reaching completion in the world of the Tian Yuan continent and origin energy was reappearing, it would not be able to rival the world of Forsaken Saints so soon. As a result, the world of Forsaken Saints became a place where many sainthood experts needed to journey to. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed since Tai Ta's departure. In those 3 years, Jian Chen remained on Three Saint Island, rarely ever leaving the island. He did not pay attention to the developments of the outside world, nor did he interfere with anything on the Tianyuan continent. He lived a life away from society. Jian Chen had taken his parents to Three Saint Island very early on. They lived on Three Saint Island. Yu Yu and Huang Luan were also cultivating on Three Saint Island. Jian Chen did not go into seclusion or cultivate across these years. He lived a straightforward and plain life, completely living like an ordinary person. He would take the boat out with Chongyang Ba and Shangguan Aojian from time to time to go fishing. He seemed to be extremely satisfied. In recent years, Shangguan Aojian had stopped cultivating as well. He spent all his time by his father's side, but only he knew that he was not happy at all despite often smiling and laughing on the surface. Instead, he felt that he was in extremely low spirits. He knew his father. He understood that the changes with his father were just signs of him leaving this world soon. By the fireside, Jian Chen, Shangguan Aojian, Shangguan Mu'er, Chongyang Ba, Bai Yuntian, Yu Yu, Huang Wan and so on all ate the roast fish with great interest. The entire family drank some alcohol and talked about everything. They were cheerful. Although Huang Wan and Yu Yu were the ones who had been formally wed to Jian Chen, they did not feel any reluctance to accept Shangguan Mu'er at all. Instead, they accepted Shangguan Mu'er as their elder sister, as there were many cases of a man taking up many wives on the Tianyuan continent, let alone someone as outstanding as Jian Chen. At this moment, the expression of Jian Chen who was eating his fish changed. He slowly put down the fish he was eating and said to everyone, "I have some matter that I must attend to, so I must leave temporarily. I will return very soon." With that, Jian Chen vanished. At the same time, there was a flash of violet light across the distant sky, disappearing into the horizon. The Cross Mountains were the largest mountain range on the Tianyuan continent. At the same time, it was a forbidden zone to many human cultivators. Even saint rulers could not set foot in there carelessly because a powerful magical beast clan controlled the mountain range. It was the Gilligan clan. Even though the situation with the world had changed, the Gilligan clan was not affected because their dwelling was basically a place humans never set foot in. Coupled with the deterrence from the winged tiger god, even saint emperors were not bold enough to provoke them, allowing the clan to continue thriving. At this moment, on a mountain peak that reached into the clouds in the depths of the Cross Mountains, a middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance sat on a stone seat. His clothes were simple, and his ink-black hair was let down casually behind him, buffeted in the wild wind. Before the middle-aged man was a stone table. There were two exquisitely crafted jade cups on the table, and a jug of alcohol that was not particularly large. It gave off an enchanting fragrance. At this moment, a violet streak of light arrived with a flash. A young man who only seemed to be in his 20s had appeared on the top of the mountain. The young man was very handsome. His face was resolute, and his eyebrows were straight and defined. He gave off a sense of sharpness, while his eyes shone brightly as if swords were hiding in them. The young man was Jian Chen. "Shen Jian, why have you called me here?" Jian Chen looked at the middle-aged man on the stone seat and asked calmly. The middle-aged man was the supreme ruler of the world of Forsaken Saints, the Spirit King. Shen Jian extended his hand to invite Jian Chen to sit down. He said, "I've called you over because I have something important I want to discuss with you." Jian Chen sat down before Shen Jian, and Shen Jian personally poured a cup of alcohol for Jian Chen. He said, "The matters with the world of Forsaken Saints have basically been dealt with. It's almost impossible for my strength to increase if I remain here, so I plan on going to the higher world." Shen Jian looked at Jian Chen and continued, "What about you? When do you plan on leaving?" Jian Chen did not hurry. He took a tiny sip of the alcohol. The alcohol was a rare, precious variety, but Jian Chen was unable to taste its deliciousness in his mouth at all. Instead, it was filled with bitterness. "I'm not like you, lonely and basically having no ties apart from the clansmen of the world of Forsaken Saints. I can't come and go as I please, with nothing holding me down. There are just too many ties in this world for me. Not only are there the parents who raised me, but I also have wives and many friends who had once fought alongside me. The Saints' world is dangerous. In this world, no one can stop us, but once we go to the Saints' world, we're nothing. I might never be able to see the people close to me ever again once I leave," Jian Chen said bitterly. "So you plan on staying here forever?" Shen Jian asked. Jian Chen shook his head. "I will go to the Saints' world, but I'm not going to leave in a hurry. At the very least, I have to spend some more time with my parents and my wives. Actually, you can take your parents and those close to you with you. Although they haven't reached the origin realm, as long as you use something that can hold people, you'll still be able to pass through the spatial tunnel and enter the saint's world, said Xinjian. With my current strength, it'll be difficult to gain a stable footing in the saint's world. My life will be in danger from even the slightest carelessness. Am I supposed to take my parents with me and live a life on the run? If that's the case, I might as well leave them here so they can live a peaceful and happy life instead. Jian Chen laughed self-deprecatingly. He had never considered taking his parents with him to the saint's world. At the very least, he needed the power to be able to gain a stable footing in the higher world and ensure that he could protect his parents before even considering the thought. When do you plan on leaving? Jian Chen continued. There was a sliver of mixed feelings in his gaze for Shen Jian. After all, the two of them were people from the same world in the past, and they were now stranded in a foreign place. Although they had been opponents for a period of time, Jian Chen still felt familiar with Shen Jian. I can leave whenever I want, but just as you've said, the saint's world is dangerous. With my current strength, I'll probably even struggle to keep myself alive, so I planned on going with you. With our strength combined, I believe we'll be able to gain a footing in the saint's world without long. The Spirit King looked at Jian Chen and said seriously. After a slight moment of thought, Jian Chen agreed with pleasure. He said, "All right, we can go together, but you need to give me some time." All right. Chapter 1661. Refining the profound sword chi. All of a sudden, Jian Chen felt like he no longer had much time left in this world after agreeing with the Spirit King's suggestion go to the saint's world together. His departure would be much sooner than expected. As a result, Jian Chen valued every single day of the remaining time even more. He spent even more time by his parents' and wives' sides. Apart from them, he also visited his old friends frequently, such as Qin Xiao, Tianmu Ling, Qin Ji, Du Gufeng, and so on. Several decades had passed, so the status of his old friends had undergone drastic changes. Whenever they gathered together and spoke about matters of the past, they would all sigh as reminiscence flooded their eyes. 5 days later, Jian Chen heard some heartbreaking news. Kendall's wife, Shen Feng, passed away. During her funeral, Jian Chen appeared with his wives, Chongyang Ba, and Bai Yun Tian to send her off one last time. Initially, it was supposed to be a very ordinary funeral, but with Jian Chen and everyone else's appearance, her funeral became an extremely great matter, raising the attention of many across the world and apparently caused quite the uproar. Many fighters in this world all sighed emotionally. Shen Feng was immortal, yet her funeral could actually draw the personal attendance of Sovereign Jian Chen. What a great honor was that! Some people even said that if they could enjoy something like that when they died, they would end their lives right now without any hesitation at all. Shen Feng's departure had caused quite a few people to feel envious, as well as quite a lot of regret. They were envious about her friendship with Sovereign Jian Chen and regretful over how she had such a great but short life. Sans mourned for his mother as he personally buried her. He remained remarkably calm throughout the entire process. He did not cry or show any sadness, but his silence gave away the grief he hid inside. 7 days later, Shen Feng's funeral came to an end. Jian Chen comforted Sans and was about to leave. "Captain, I want to leave the Flame Mercenaries. Please accept my departure." At this moment, Sans knelt down and pleaded Jian Chen. Jian Chen paused before turning around and looking at Sans with mixed feelings. He sighed gently. "Sans, your father personally founded the Flame Mercenaries. They are the memories of your father, so how can you leave? Also, I intended for you to inherit the position of captain, except your current strength and prestige in the Flame Mercenaries would definitely lead to the dissatisfaction of many if I passed it on too soon, which is why I still haven't done that. I plan to pass on the position at a suitable time once you've earned your own prestige. You would be the captain of the Flame Mercenaries at that time." Sans shook his head. "Captain, I don't want to inherit the position of captain. Although my father personally founded the Flame Mercenaries, you were the one who did all the development. It had nothing to do with my father. How can I inherit the position of captain? Please revoke it, captain." Jian Chen suddenly became stern after hearing Sans' words. He said with a gruff voice, "Sans, do you know what kind of organization the Flame Mercenaries has now become on the continent? The position of captain is enough to make countless people green with envy, yet you don't care about it at all. If your father knew about this, he would not be able to rest easy in the afterlife." Sans knelt on the ground and pushed his head deeply into the ground. He said sorrowfully, "Captain, I'm sorry. I've disappointed you and let you down. I've let down all the years of support you've provided me across the years. You can only blame me for my lack of ambition and ability. The passing of my mother has made me let go of a lot of things in the world. Now, I no longer wish for any glory on the Tianyuan continent. I only want to manage this inn because it's the only thing that my mother has left to me. It contains the memories of my mother. Captain, please accept my resignation from the Flame Mercenaries. Jian Chen looked at Sans, both furious and angered. He appeared exasperated about how Sans failed to live up to his expectations. However, there was also a profound sense of helplessness on his face. He could already see that Sans had made up his mind. Any more attempts at persuasion would not have much effect at all. He would end up forcing Sans instead. Jian Chen sighed at the sky after a long while and said, Whatever. Since you've already decided, I will respect your choice. With that, Jian Chen became dejected. He left with a wave of his sleeve. He had decided for Sans to become the next captain of the Flame Mercenaries long ago, but Sans' choice had just disappointed him. Thank you, Captain, Sans replied politely. Sans, you have to remember that the Flame Mercenaries exists because of your father. If you think it through today and want to return to the Flame Mercenaries, that door will always be open to you. Jian Chen's vigorous voice rang out. Sans stood up and looked at Jian Chen with eyes filled with tears. He thought, Savior, you've helped my mother and I far too much in the past years. I'll never be able to repay your kindness, so how can I replace Bai Lian as the captain? Bai Lian is your sister after all. I can never do something like that, never. Several years later, Jian Chen finally made up his mind to make the final preparations for Saint's World. After bidding farewell to everyone, he left Three Island all by himself and went to the tunnel connected to the world of Forsaken Saints. The tunnel between the two worlds was no longer as empty as before. Instead, it had become hectic. There would be people of various races passing through the tunnel between the two worlds from time to time. There was an island in the water near the tunnel created by a saint emperor. Various merchants had set up stands there, holding huge auctions to auction off treasures obtained from the world of Forsaken Saints. It had already developed into quite a large city. Jian Chen did not stay there for too long. He turned into a blur and directly entered the tunnel, heading towards the world of Forsaken Saints. The tunnel had stabilized now, but it still reacted violently to Jian Chen's entry with his current strength. It immediately began to shake tremendously as violet streams of energy gradually formed, wreaking havoc in the tunnel. Even Saint Emperors had to handle the streams of energy carefully. There were still quite a lot of people in the tunnel right now, so the tremors and streams of energy immediately made a few people pale. They all cried out and charged towards the exit as quickly as they could. Jian Chen concealed his presence and carefully moved through the tunnel. He knew that he was too powerful, basically having reached the limits that the tunnel could withstand. If he did not conceal his presence, he would end up making the entire tunnel collapse. At the same time, he flicked a finger and shot out strands of sword qi, dispersing the energy in the distance to protect the cultivators who fled from harm. The sword qi had only reached peak Saint Emperor in strength at most, so he did not have to worry about it damaging the tunnel. When Jian Chen emerged from the tunnel, he saw a familiar blood-red world. In the blood-red world was a red sun and moon, as if they had been painted by blood. It caused the entire world to be filled with a malevolence feeling. This was the second time Jian Chen had come to the world of Forsaken Saints. He was accompanied by Shangguan Mu'er during the first time and was hostile towards the world back then. He had come for battle, which resulted in a great battle between him and the Spirit King. This was the second time, and this time, the world of Forsaken Saints had gone from enemies to friends with the Tianyuan continent's world. Even though there would be conflicts between the people of the two worlds from time to time, it was mostly due to interests and did not take a toll on their overall relationship. There were quite a few people gathered on the top of the world mountains. They all stood afar from the tunnel and discussed the changes to the tunnel with lingering fear. Many of them behaved like they had just survived a great disaster. None of them discovered that a young man had walked out of the destabilized tunnel composedly soon after they exited. He was now hidden among the crowd. The young man had erased his presence, preventing anyone from sensing his existence. Even when people glanced past him from time to time, they would not take note of him, missing him extremely easily. There was a teleportation formation set up on the top of the World Mountains, 2 kilometers away from the tunnel. As the World Mountains were just too dangerous, Even receival experts needed to be careful when climbing the mountains as they could die from any carelessness. It made it even more impossible for cultivators who were at sainthood or even below that. As a result, the teleportation formation especially existed to send people out of the mountains. Not only did a few sainthood experts use the teleportation to ascend and descend the mountains, but the protectors and elders also used it most of the time as well after its creation. They basically did not use their strength to climb the mountains anymore. Jian Chen stood in the crowd. As his gaze landed on the teleportation formation, a gleam of light immediately flashed through his eyes, but he did not become too interested in the teleportation formation. With a single moment, he seemed to have become an arrow, charging beyond the top of the world mountains with a flash. Quickly, he arrived at a hazardous zone where even Origin Realm experts could die. He flew through the world mountains without any fear at all. Soon afterwards, Jian Chen stopped on a sword-shaped mountain 1,000 kilometers away. Around him, the strong winds whistled loudly, forming invisible wind blades that swept past Jian Chen mercilessly. The wind was so powerful that even Jian Chen had not seen something like this before. Even saint emperors would struggle to endure it and would be torn to shreds without much time. Thunder boomed above his head as lightning constantly fell. Bolts of thick lightning would rip through the blood-red sky with deafening sounds frequently. The lightning was even more powerful than the wind. Even receival experts would become injured if they were careless. They could even die. The laws here are the most powerful. I'll refine the profound sword qi here. Jian Chen ignored the strong winds and sea of lightning, just sitting down like that. He began to cultivate. The strong winds ripped through his clothes but failed to harm his body at all. The lightning in the sky would fall from time to time, striking Jian Chen's head accurately, but not a single hair of his would be blown away. Chapter 1662. The Sword Qi's appearance throws world in shock. 1. The profound sword qi was a technique that the sword spirits had passed on to Jian Chen. It was the greatest sword technique he knew so far, as well as his greatest trump card. This was because the old master of the sword spirits had poured his heart out and devoted a tremendous amount of time to create this powerful sword technique. It had reached the peak of God tier, and its name had rung through the entire Immortals world in the past as well. It was known as one of the greatest God tier battle skills in the Immortals world. Logically, the greater a technique was, the greater the requirement on the cultivator was to comprehend and use it. Usually, God tier techniques required people to be immortal monarchs at the very least to comprehend and gain a grasp over them, but not all techniques were like that. There were a few special ones that could still be learnt and used regardless of the person's strength, even if they had not become an immortal monarch. The profound sword qi was one of these techniques. Jian Chen sat on the top of the mountains and ignored the buffeting from the strong winds. He allowed the bolts of lightning to fall from the sky and land onto him. He did not take any defensive measures at all, directly beginning his refinement there. Even Origin Realm experts suffered the risk of losing their lives in such a horrible environment. No one would go here unless they had to. As a result, just the natural environment here became Jian Chen's best measure of defense. At the same time, with the entire world of Forsaken Saints in perspective, no one aside from the Spirit King could injure him anymore with his 9th-layer chaotic body. The profound sword qi has a total of 9 strands. Only by refining all of them can the full power of this peak God tier technique be demonstrated. However, even if I only refine a single strand, its power will still exceed all the sword techniques I know right now. This will become my greatest trump card in the Saints world. Refining the strands of profound sword qi is related to my comprehension of the way of the sword. I can only refine all 9 strands when I become a sword god, but right now I've only comprehended to the major achievement of sword origin. It just happens to be enough to refine the first strand of profound sword qi. If I can reach great perfection of sword origin, I'll be able to refine the second strand. In the future, sword spirit, sword immortal, and sword sage realms will allow me to refine another strand of profound sword qi when I reach major achievement and great achievement respectively, Jian Chen thought. He thought about the refinement method from the sword spirits and entered a selfless state of comprehension. Profound sword qi was formed by combining the power of laws from the way of the sword comprehended, the power of the soul, personal cultivation level, and the vital energies of life. As the sword qi used the power of laws as its primary source of strength and had several other powers combined into it as well, it was much stronger than any power of laws that could be used at that level. Although it seemed simple on the surface, it contained the mysteries of the universe, making it infinitely profound and almost heaven-defying. Only an expert as great as the old master of the sword spirits could come up with something like this. Jian Chen meditated on the top of the mountain as the tremendous energies of life tremored. He had mobilized all the vital energies within him so that they entered the most lively state, preparing to refine the profound sword qi. At the same time, he had entered his realm of the way of the sword, having his entire consciousness submerged in his major achievement of sword origin. He began to control the power of laws from his way of the sword, fusing it with a part of his soul's power, his vital energies, and a strand of his cultivation's power. This was the first step to refining the profound sword qi, known as the fusion of heaven and origin. The heaven referred to the power of laws in the way of the sword, as the power came from the world and was one of the 3,000 great ways, so it was called heaven. The origin was not referring to the origin in the origin realm, but the three powers present in a cultivator: their cultivation, their vital energies, and their soul. The fusion of the three powers was called origin, the origin in refining the profound sword qi, and not the moniker used in the saints' world to refer to a cultivation level. As Jian Chen undertook the first step in the process of refining the profound sword qi, his body showed signs of withering. This was caused by his vital energies being drained away. During the first step, the power of his soul, cultivation, and life would be constantly drained away, ground away by the power of laws. After all, the power of laws were just too great. Even with Jian Chen's comprehension of the way of the sword remaining at the major achievement of sword origin, the power of laws from that level was still much stronger than the power of his soul, cultivation, and life combined. As Jian Chen meditated, his body gradually withered and his face became haggard as well. The constant consumption during the fusion process of his vital energies, power of the soul, and power of laws caused this scene. At the same time, his chaotic force was being consumed as well. Chaotic force was his power of cultivation, so his chaotic Niden visibly shrank. Although I can use the power of the way of the sword, every time I've used it is just stacking it on top of chaotic force at most, not truly fusing them. Fusing the four powers will be extremely difficult, so this first step will be the hardest. I'll need to reach a juncture where I find the balance between the four powers if I want to succeed. Then I need to fuse them all in one stroke and complete the first step, Jian Chen thought. He already knew how difficult it would be to refine profound sword qi. If he failed to complete the first step before his vital energies, power of cultivation, and power of soul ran out, his attempt this time would end in failure. Fortunately, he could recover everything he consumed in the process, so even if he did fail, his life would not be in danger. He could recover and continue trying. Jian Chen spent a total of 10 years on the first step but still failed to succeed. By now, Jian Chen had been reduced to a bag of bones, while his face was waxen. He seemed ancient. His head full of hair had withered as if all the signs of life had been drained from it. I can't last much longer. It's just too difficult to combine the power of my cultivation, soul, life, and way of the sword. It looks like I can only end my first attempt in failure, Jian Chen thought. However, he did not become dejected because the profound sword qi was a peak god-tier technique. Refining it would obviously be difficult. However, just when Jian Chen wanted to give up, a gleam of light suddenly flashed through his eyes. He could clearly feel that although the power of laws continued to eat away the other three powers when they came into contact with each other, a tiny sliver of power had entered the power of laws. A juncture. This is the juncture of success. Jian Chen's attention gathered, and without any hesitation, he immediately poured the vital energies, power of cultivation, and power of soul into the power of laws despite the former three almost running dry. He wanted to complete the most crucial step in a single stroke. Finally, just when Jian Chen's vital energies and power of the soul were about to run dry, he smiled victoriously. 3 inches before his forehead hovered a finger-sized white sword qi. The sword qi was small, but Jian Chen could clearly feel the greatness of the power it was hiding. It had reached a level that was enough to make him shiver. I never thought that the power of laws would become so great after fusing with other powers. Jian Chen stared at the tiny sword qi with great interest. The sword qi was created from the fusion of the powers of his soul, cultivation, life, and laws. So the power contained in the sword qi had even surpassed the power of laws before fusion. This was a power that was even greater than the power of laws. It was on a whole new level, even though it was so weak right now. There are 2 steps to refining the profound sword qi. I've already completed the first step now, but the second step should be much easier in comparison. Chapter 1663. The sword qi's appearance throws world in shock. 2. The second step to refining the profound sword qi is to fuse it with the soul. The sword qi will reside in the soul and be nourished there, while its power will constantly increase as my comprehension of the way of the sword deepens. Jian Chen looked at the profound sword qi floating before him. He had become very weak now, to the point where both the power of his soul and vital energies had never been lower before. Right now, he was basically a bag of bones, but he was still filled with excitement and joy. He finally possessed a trump card to protect himself after venturing to the saint's world with the refinement of the profound sword qi. He did not need to fear even if he confronted people stronger than him, given that their difference in strength was not overwhelming of course. Jian Chen closed his eyes and began the second step to refining the profound sword qi, which was also the final step. Only after completing this could he regard his refinement of the profound sword qi as complete. Jian Chen's power of the soul, cultivation, and life was no longer consumed during this step. Although he was unable to recover his lost cultivation for now, his vital energies gradually recovered under the regenerative abilities of the chaotic body. His power of the soul behaved similarly, except it returned extremely slowly compared to his vital energies. Although the second step of refining the profound sword qi was easier than the first, it still took a lot of time. Time flashed by. Jian Chen had completely lost all sense of time as he refined the profound sword qi, so in the blink of an eye, he had spent another 5 years on the second step. The 5 years were just enough for him to complete the second step, and the profound sword qi floating before his forehead vanished at the moment of completion. It entered his sea of consciousness, which nurtured it at all times. Jian Chen opened his eyes the moment he completed the process. He had recovered half of his vital energies in the past 5 years, so his body had returned to its previous state. This was all from the automatic regeneration of his chaotic body. If he focused on regenerating his vital energies, he would recover even faster. Jian Chen stood up from the position that he had remained in for 15 years. With a flash of light through his eyes, a strand of white sword qi immediately appeared above his head. The sword qi was not very big at all. In fact, it could be described as tiny. It was only as long as a finger and shone with dazzling white light. However, the moment the sword qi appeared, a devastatingly powerful pressure erupted from within. As the pressure expanded, the terrifyingly strong winds in the center of the world mountains and the flickering lightning all calmed down. The wind stopped and the lightning vanished as if they had fled in the face of terror. The blood-red sky of the world of forsaken saints became dyed white with the profound sword qi's appearance. The color expanded in all directions, enveloping a region of countless tens of thousands of kilometers. It alarmed many cultivators in the world of forsaken saints. At that moment, countless cultivators in the world of forsaken saints raised their heads in shock. The original inhabitants of the world, the forsaken saints, felt strange inside in particular. After all, they had remained in the world for so long and understood it extremely well. The sky had always been blood-red in their memories and had never changed, yet it actually became white at this moment. What's happening? Why has this happened? Are there experts fighting? Is this the disturbance caused by fighting? Impossible. Even if Origin Realm experts start fighting, the sky won't go from red to white. I think some great treasure has appeared, and this is the light from the treasure. The light originates from the world mountains. Why don't we head over, and we'll know. Immediately, many of the more powerful cultivators gathered towards the world mountains, but no one dared to venture inside in the end. After all, the mountains were just too dangerous. If they went too deep in, even Origin Realm experts would face danger, let alone Saint Emperors. Several Origin Realm experts emerged from the sacred spirit hall. They all stood outside and gazed at the distant sky, revealing surprised expressions. Immediately, quite a few of them rose up to go and see what was happening. Come back. There's no need for you to go. It's all caused by Jian Chen. At this moment, the Spirit King's voice rang out from the sacred spirit hall. He slowly walked out from the divine hall in simple clothes. We greet the Spirit King. The Origin Realm experts all bowed towards the Spirit King politely. The ones who had left immediately returned. They understood now. As it turned out, it was all caused by the sovereign of the Tianyuan continent, Jian Chen, so it was no wonder there would be such a great disturbance. The Spirit King stood before the sacred spirit hall with his arms crossed. He looked at the distant sky and became slightly stern. He said, I can sense an extremely powerful sword qi in the depths of the world mountains. The sword qi is so powerful that it can slay godhood experts. Is this the profound sword qi that Jian Chen was speaking of in the past? It sure is terrifying. What? It can slay godhood experts? Spirit King, Why, you can't be joking, right? The protectors and elders all became stunned when they heard the Spirit King's words. They could not help but think of Jian Chen's handsome and resolute face as they trembled from the bottom of their hearts. Possessing battle prowess at godhood, even if it was just the weakest among godhood, was already enough to stand supreme in this world. Yet now, a power that could actually slay godhood experts had appeared, so they all became astounded. Jian Chen was still slightly weaker before. It has only been so many years, yet he has already grown to such a level. He has become an existence that I can only look up to. Xiongzhong murmured with complicated emotions. The other protectors and elders experienced mixed feelings as well. In the World Mountains, Jian Chen put his profound sword Qi away in satisfaction. With a single movement, he left the region. Jumping onto the Ziying sword, he flew fearlessly through the sky and headed directly towards the Sacred Spirit Hall. Jian Chen's strength allowed him to travel at unbelievably great speeds, so he arrived before the Sacred Spirit Hall very soon. His arrival shocked the upper echelon of the Sacred Spirit Hall. All the protectors and elders came out to welcome him. They all bowed towards him, whether they were receival protectors or returnance elders. They said politely and with many other emotions, "We greet Sovereign Jian Chen." They would have never been so polite to Jian Chen in the past, but now that they had learnt that Jian Chen possessed the power to kill godhood experts, they became extremely fearful of him. The Spirit King invited Jian Chen into the Sacred Spirit Hall and asked him, "Have you made all your preparations since you're visiting me now?" Chapter 1664. Fully prepared, there's one last thing to do. We can leave this world after this and go to the Saint's world, Jian Chen said to Shen Jian. Shen Jian stared at Jian Chen and suddenly smiled. There must be something I can help out with for this last thing, right? That's right. Jian Chen took out a beast fur from his space ring and passed it to Shen Jian. He said, "I still need to cast down a teleportation formation so that we can return to this world. Although we still haven't left, I do know that there are many lower worlds. Without a teleportation formation to pinpoint the location, it'll be extremely difficult to return to here. The materials I lack are written on the beast fur. I hope you can help me with collecting them." A teleportation formation. Shen Jian frowned. If I recall correctly, casting down a teleportation formation is not an easy matter at all. It requires an extremely great mastery over the way of formations. Even though there have been a few teleportation formations in our world, they've come from countless years ago, and they don't possess the power to cross worlds. It'll be quite difficult for you to cast down a teleportation formation from the Saint's world to here. I don't need a complete formation. I just need an anchor so that I can pinpoint this world's location. Although it's a little complicated, I don't think it'll take too long for me to cast one down, said Jian Chen. All right, I'll help you collect these materials. Afterwards, Jian Chen returned to the Tianyuan continent and used all the power he could muster in that world to find for the missing materials for the teleportation formation. He himself remained in Flame City, absorbing the information about formations from the sword spirits. They sword spirits were not particularly familiar with formations, but they still had been around for a long time after all, so they knew a lot. Just a teleportation formation to act as an anchor was nothing difficult for them to explain. At the same time, Jian Chen visited Yang Lai, Feng Xiaotian, and Gue Hai Yi Dao many times in an attempt to learn how to cast a teleportation formation. Unfortunately, Feng Xiaotian was of no help to Jian Chen even though he knew about it slightly. In the end, Jian Chen visited Fairy Hao Yu. After all, she was also a person from the Saint's world and obviously possessed broad insight. To Jian Chen's joy, Fairy Hao Yu actually possessed quite some mastery over formations. He immediately asked her about teleportation formations with modesty, and benefited greatly in the end. He felt enlightened. Jian Chen visited the Bright Moon Divine Hall often in the following period of time. He asked her about any problems and confusions he encountered about the teleportation formation. Only half a year later, when all the materials he needed were sent to him, did he enter seclusion once again. He devoted himself to studying the teleportation formation, and even used up some of his few remaining comprehension tea leaves. Jian Chen had rarely ever come across teleportation formations, so casting them made it even more difficult. Even with the sword spirit's assistance and the knowledge he gained from Fairy Hao Yu, he was still very far away from truly being able to cast down one. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Time passed slowly, while Jian Chen had also failed countless times at creating a teleportation formation. The materials he had on him rapidly depleted. Fortunately, the materials were not the greatest kind, so they could be found in both the Tianyuan continent and the world of Forsaken Saints. Jian Chen did not need to worry about insufficient materials given how there were countless people across the two worlds collecting materials for him. Finally, Jian Chen achieved success in the 5th year. A glimmering formation was inscribed on a piece of rock, radiating with a powerful pulse of energy. Jian Chen revealed much joy as he stared at the complicated formation with almost perfect inscriptions. Even though the formation did not possess the ability to teleport people away, which made it only half complete, it was more than enough to act as an anchor for the Tianyuan continent. He no longer needed to fear being unable to find the Tianyuan continent in the Saints' world with this formation. Afterwards, Jian Chen removed a fist-sized sphere of stone from the teleportation formation and carefully placed it into a wooden box, putting it away. The stone sphere possessed a form of connection with the teleportation formation, which would be crucial for him to return after going to the Saints' world. Afterwards, Jian Chen cast down more than a dozen other formations in various places on the Tianyuan continent as he was afraid that the teleportation formation would be damaged. He chose extremely remote locations for each one, and he left behind a sword formation to protect each one. At the same time, he removed a similar spherical stone from each formation, storing them away carefully. Jian Chen still did not feel that it was secure enough. In the end, he directly flew into deep outer space and cast down 3 formations across the 2 halves of the moon. Afterwards, he cast down a few more on a few distant planets from the moon. These would form his path back home. He could not afford to make any mistakes. Even though no one would ever destroy his work if he announced it with his current prestige, he needed to be prepared for the worst-case scenario. Jian Chen was finally relieved after settling the matter of the teleportation formation. He returned to the Tianyuan continent and immediately summoned all the Origin Realm experts in his world. Very soon, the Sea Goddess, Houston, Yang Lai, Feng Xiaotian, Gue Hai Yi Dao, Shangguan Mu'er, Xiao Jin, Xiao Ling, and so on all gathered in Flame City. They all seemed to understand why Jian Chen had summoned them there, so they all experienced extremely mixed emotions. Great-grandfather seniors, I will be setting off for the Saints' world before long. I was wondering if any of you wish to come along. However, the Saints' world is exceedingly dangerous, where the Origin Realm is basically nothing powerful. You have to be mentally prepared, Jian Chen said with mixed feelings. He was unable to remain calm as he was going to leave soon. Although he would still return in the future as he had even cast down the teleportation formations, he did not know who would still be alive when he did return. Oh yeah! We're finally going to the Saints' world. Big brother, you have to take me to go search for Master. I miss Master so much. Aside from Xiao Ling, who cheered excitedly, everyone else remained silent. After a moment of silence, the Sea Goddess broke the silence first. I'm still a little too weak right now. There's no hurry for me to go to the Saints' world, so it won't be too late for me to go after I reach reciprocity. Originally, there were 10 of us who arrived in this world. Currently, only the 3 of us have awakened. We won't be going to the Saints' world for now. We plan on staying here for another 10,000 years. If they still don't awaken in those 10,000 years, we can only choose to leave, said Feng Xiaotian. He also spoke about the intentions of Gue Hai Yi Dao and Yang Lai. Jian Chen, I'll go to the Saints' world with you. I have the Empyrean Demon Orb, so I shouldn't become a burden to you, Houston smiled, deciding to go with Jian Chen. After the discussions, only the White Tiger, Xiao Jin, Xiao Ling, Houston, and Shangguan Mu'er planned on going to the Saints' world with Jian Chen. Yang Lai, Feng Xiaotian, Gue Hai Yi Dao, and the Sea Goddess all chose to stay behind. Jian Chen, you have to take me with you. You can't forget about me, the great newbies. At this moment, newbies barged in loudly despite having been missing for quite a while. He had directly yelled out, showing no respect towards Jian Chen. Chapter 1665. Departure. Jian Chen broke into laughter when he saw newbies charge in from outside. He said, Newbies, haven't you been living quite the life with your 2 concubines? Going with me to the Saints' world will be a life of blood, so why bother at all? You have to bear in mind that even if I go to the Saints' world with my current strength, it'll be very difficult to even gain a stable footing. A bloody life is the best life in my eyes because only a life like that will be a challenge. Jian Chen, I've put it very clearly. If you want to go to the Saints' world, you can't leave me behind. Otherwise, you're no longer my brother, newbies said. He was filled with excitement and eagerness, clearly anticipating the journey to the Saint's world. "All right. I heard that only Origin Realm experts can pass through the spatial tunnel to the Saint's world. I still haven't reached the Origin Realm, so think of something for me. Just don't leave me behind," said Newbies. He and Jian Chen had forged their brotherhood through adversity, making their bond anything but ordinary. As a result, Newbies spoke to Jian Chen extremely casually, unlike the other Saint Emperors. "All right. I can only take you with me since you insist so much." Jian Chen could only agree to Newbies coming along. Although Newbies was a little weak to go to the Saint's world right now, his rate of improvement would definitely be far greater there than if he remained in this world. Afterwards, Jian Chen visited a few old friends, bidding his final farewells. He believed that it would be at least a dozen millennia or even several dozen millennia before he would return. Saint Emperors only had a lifespan of 10 millennia, so his old friends probably would have passed away already when he returned again. Although the origin energy of the world was gradually recovering and there was now the world of Forsaken Saints, a paradise for cultivation, reaching the origin realm was still not an easy accomplishment. Jian Chen then went to find Hao Wu in a remote mountain range. Hao Wu had already become a Saint Emperor now, but he had become an old man instead. He had left Czar Kaiyun and secluded himself in the mountains, cultivating in solitary. Jian Chen's emotions became extremely mixed when he saw the wrinkly, gray-haired old man because this was his father-in-law. After explaining that he was about to leave this world, Hao Wu fell silent. He only responded with a soft sigh after quite a while. "Jian Chen, I hope you can look after Mu'er well in the Saint's world." "I will." Jian Chen swore an oath to himself and Hao Wu. Jian Chen left after his conversation with Hao Wu. Soon, he arrived 1,000 kilometers away from where Hao Wu cultivated. There was a mountain that directly plunged into the clouds there, and there was also a small wooden hut on it. A beauty in a violet dress sat before the wooden hut, gazing into the distance in a daze. Her face was filled with uncontainable sorrow and memories. She was the ancestor of the Tsar family from the city of God, Tsar Kaiyun. She had left the clan many years ago, no longer interfering with any matters in the clan. She had always remained on the mountain, living a life of seclusion. Aside from cultivation, she liked to do this the most, gazing into the distance in a trance. The direction she gazed in was where Hao Wu had settled down. 1,000 kilometers was originally nothing more than a step for Tsar Kaiyun, a Saint Emperor, but it felt like the ends of the earth in her heart. Jian Chen hovered in the air and gazed at Tsar Kaiyun. His feelings were mixed, and he left after heaving a soft sigh. Tsar Kaiyun had failed to sense Jian Chen's arrival at all. In the end, Jian Chen visited Tianjian. Tianjian had originally become a Saint Emperor through the Saint's world. Jian Chen then gifted him a violet cloud peach, allowing his strength to increase drastically once again. He was now an 8th heavenly layer Saint Emperor, making him one of the most powerful people below the origin realm. Jian Chen had a long conversation with Tianjian. Then he pulled out a white fur from his space ring and forcefully shoved it into Tianjian's hands. This was the fur of the winged tiger god, which covered the way of slaughter from Mo Tianyun. The origin realm experts of this world had tried to comprehend it many times, but they failed to get anything out of it in the end. After a few cycles, it returned to Jian Chen's hands. Right now, Jian Chen had given the beast fur to Tianjian solemnly. Mo Tianyun had left behind the way of slaughter, and Mo Tianyun founded Mercenary City. As the great elder of Mercenary City, it was only right for Tianjian to inherit the beast fur. Whether he could actually comprehend the way of slaughter would be a whole different matter. Jian Chen had considered giving the beast fur to Shangguan Aojian, but he possessed the innate chaotic body. He had his own path to take, so giving the beast fur to Tianjian would be a better choice. After bidding farewell to Tianjian, Jian Chen visited the Supreme Divine Hall left behind by Mo Tianyun. He took away Kai Ya, who remained unconscious in the crystal coffin with him, as well as the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast who had always been watching over her silently. Jian Chen was currently helpless about Kai Ya's situation. As a result, he planned on taking her to the Saint's world with him. He hoped to find a way to awaken her there. Afterwards, Jian Chen went to the world of Forsaken Saints again. He found the 4 brothers who were cultivating there, and asked them if they wanted to go to the Saint's world with him. "Jian Chen, we don't want to go to the Saint's world yet. We want to cultivate for some time in the world of Forsaken Saints and go once we're stronger," said Ada. Jian Chen nodded and said nothing more. He turned around and left. 3 days later, all the Origin Realm experts in the two worlds arrived on the Tian Yuan continent because this day was Jian Chen and the Spirit King's day of departure. Everyone had come to see them off. Aside from the Origin Realm experts from the Tian Yuan continent, there were many saint emperors and people who were familiar with Jian Chen. This included Tian Jian and the few remaining elders of Mercenary City, Tianmu Ling from the Tianmu clan, as well as the two elders of Tianmu Ling who were frequently by her side, Huang Tianba of the Huang family, Qin Shao of the Tianqin clan, Qin Ji of the Qin Huang kingdom and their imperial protectors, Quan Yu Kai and Kara Li Wei of the Radiant Saint Master Union, the Turtle clan experts, Hall Master of the Sea Goddess Hall, Xia Wang, and so on. In general, basically everyone who was familiar with Jian Chen that was still in the living world was present. Even the four brothers who were cultivating in the world of Forsaken Saints had come specially to see them off. Chong Yang, who had left the Pure Heart Pavilion for the first time since he returned after severing his emotions and his desires to see Jian Chen off one last time. However, there was no longer any lingering signs of brotherhood in his eyes. There was only peace and calmness. Jian Chen's heart throbbed with Chong Yang, whose change. His eldest brother was no longer the eldest brother of the past. Xiang'er, you have to return alive. You cannot forget that your father and I are still waiting for you here, Bai Yuntian and Chong Yongba said to Jian Chen tearfully, unwilling to part with him. The two of them understood that his departure this time would be permanent for them. Brother, I will always wait for you here. Don't forget that you have me, your sister. If you don't return within 10,000 years, you'll probably never see me again. Bai Lian's tears poured down her cheeks as well as she said this to Jian Chen while choking back her sobs. With her talent, reaching Saint Emperor was no problem. But the Origin Realm would be almost impossible for her. Father, mother, you have to be careful in the Saints' world. If you don't come back in the next 10,000 years, I'll go to the Saints' world personally to find you, Shangguan Aojin said with great determination. He was not just making conversation about going up to the higher world after 10,000 years. If it were not for the fact that he was worried he might not find his parents in the Saints' world, he had no need to wait 10 millennia to go up. Jian Chen, you have to return. Yu Yu and Huang Luan were in tears. The two of them were in horrible spirits. Jian Chen's departure this time seemed eternal to them. At this moment, the bright moon divine hall flew over from afar, gently landing on the ground. Soon afterwards, its doors swung open, and Fairy Hao Yu's voice rang out. You four who haven't reached the Origin Realm, it's impossible for you to survive in the space of the tunnel. Come in here. With that, Rue Jin, Hong Lian, Hei Yu, and newbies all entered the bright moon divine hall. It won't be smooth sailing traveling through the spatial tunnel. If we're unlucky, we'll come across some danger. I advise everyone to enter my bright moon divine hall aside from Jian Chen and the Spirit King, just in case of any accidents. Fairy Hao Yu continued. Xiao Zhong immediately became displeased when he heard that. He said, your divine hall doesn't seem sturdy at all. With my strength at reciprocity, how is it possible for me to be safer if I stay in your divine hall? Let alone your puny strength at reciprocity. Even if Jian Chen moves through the spatial tunnel with his current strength, it won't be as safe as remaining in my divine hall. It's just that I have to pay too great of a price if I want to return to the Saints' world by myself, which is why I have to go with you, Fairy Hao Yu said coldly. Everyone could tell that reciprocity was nothing in her eyes. Xiong Zhong did not dare to say anything more. Instead, he glanced at Jian Chen. He would have definitely believed that Fairy Hao Yu was telling tales if she did not use Jian Chen as a point of comparison. He would have never complied with his personality. However, now that Fairy Hao Yu had mentioned that even Jian Chen would be safer by remaining in her divine hall, she clearly held no regard for Jian Chen at all. He wanted to see Jian Chen's reaction. Jian Chen rubbed his nose and smiled resplendently. Fairy Hao Yu is the reincarnation of a great expert in the Saints' world. Since it's her who said it, there are definitely reasons why it's true. It's best if you all enter the divine hall. Jian Chen had never been sure about the ins and outs of Fairy Hao Yu. Even with his current strength, Fairy Hao Yu still seemed unfathomable in his eyes. Chapter 1666. The Saints' world. The eyes of all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints narrowed as soon as they heard that Fairy Hao Yu was the reincarnation of a great expert from the Saints' world. Their faces all changed, while Xiong Zhong, who had been displeased with her, no longer dared to say anything more. Shen Jian's gaze towards the bright moon divine hall changed as well. He could guess from the way Fairy Hao Yu spoke that she was probably quite a powerful expert in the Saints' world in the past, or she would not have been able to talk like that. After the minor incident, No one retorted Fairy Hao Yu's words anymore. The Origin Realm experts of both worlds who planned on going to the Saints' World all entered the Bright Moon Divine Hall. Even Xiongzhong and Shangguan Mu'er, who were both at Reciprocity, did not stay outside, which only left Jian Chen and Xin Jian outside. There were quite a few Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints, but there were not many who chose to go to the Saints' World. Aside from Xiongzhong, there were only 4 other Returnance Elders. The other Receival experts all decided to stay behind. Since we're all prepared, let's set off. Fairy Hao Yu's voice rang out. She was clearly rather eager. She was extremely worried about her father's safety, so she wanted to return to the Saints' World as soon as possible. Wait! Jian Chen suddenly said, before taking out the Radiant Saint artifact. He removed Kai Ya's crystal casket from it and to no surprise, a fist-sized beast lay on the casket. Fairy Hao Yu, please take my friend with you. She should be safer with you than me, said Jian Chen. The appearance of the crystal casket immediately attracted the attention of all the Origin Realm experts present. However, they were not looking at the casket, but the fist-sized beast that was laying on it. They all shivered inside because they could sense the powerful presence of an Origin Realm expert from the beast. Jian Chen did not leave the crystal casket in the artifact space, mainly because of the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast. It had already reached the Origin Realm, so it would destroy the artifact space just from the slightest carelessness. Jian Chen did not dare to place Kai Ya and the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast in the Anata Tower, either as he would never reveal the Anata Tower after going to the Saints' World. After all, he had not fully refined the Anata Tower yet. Once he exposed it in the Saints' World, Supreme experts might end up sensing the tower's presence. After waving goodbye to everyone, Jian Chen flew away from the Tian Yuan continent with Shen Jian. He charged towards the spatial tunnel leading to the Saints' World, while the Bright Moon Divine Hall followed behind them. Yu Yu and Bai Lian waved goodbye on the Tian Yuan continent sorrowfully. They were too weak, so they did not go to the higher world with Jian Chen. To another side, Qin Qin, Xiao Qian, and Xiao Yu stood together. Qin Qin watched Jian Chen gradually disappear gloomily. Master Jian Chen. Farewell. I'll probably never see you again from today onwards, thought Qin Qin. Tears rolled down her cheeks uncontrollably as her heart experienced unprecedented pain. You have to be careful in the tunnel. You can't be careless at all. Jian Chen, you will protect my Bright Moon Divine Hall. If we encounter any dangers along the way, I'll warn you. Fairy Hao Yu's voice rang out from behind. After that, the Bright Moon Divine Hall immediately shrank to the size of a fist, which Jian Chen then grabbed in his hand. Zi-ing, Qing Sua, I'm going to the Saints' World. Things can only be difficult for you for now, Jian Chen said to the sword spirits. Then he placed his hand gently on the twin swords. With a flash of light, the swords vanished, having merged into Jian Chen's palm. They remained in his dantian. Jian Chen already had the ability to store the twin swords in his body for quite some time now, except leaving the swords in contact with the world allowed them to absorb the yin and yang energies in the world, which was beneficial to their recovery. However, he could no longer afford to keep them exposed now that he was going to the Saints' World. Jian Chen carried the Bright Moon Divine Hall in his left hand as he traveled alongside Shen Jian. They entered the tunnel together, leaving their original worlds. The tunnel to the Saints' World was not composed of chaos but balls of multicolored hues. They formed long streaks of multicolored streams, filling every corner of the tunnel. At the same time, an extremely tremendous pressure crushed in from all directions. The pressure was so great that it could kill Saint Emperors. Only Origin Realm experts could withstand it. Jian Chen and Shen Jian endured the pressure easily, carefully making their way through the spatial tunnel. They looked around out of curiosity. When Jian Chen saw the multicolored hues that filled the tunnel, he immediately saw his landscape changing, varying between light and dark. Through the hues, he seemed to see worlds flash by blurrily. Each world was different. Each world possessed its own systems and cultures. Sometimes, he could even see the battle between experts of various levels in the worlds. Some were powerful, while others were weak. They could be as weak as sainthood experts, or even mortal realm experts, but he would also see battles between Origin Realm experts as well. However, the images were extremely blurry and changed exceptionally quickly. Each image would appear and disappear in a split second, making it impossible to discern whether they were actually real or not. What you see is all true because we're currently moving through space at an unbelievable speed. Every world we pass by projects a shadow. Fairy Hao Yu's voice rang out in Jian Chen's head. Jian Chen was secretly shocked when he heard that. He had already seen the images of countless worlds. If each image represented an entire world, he truly had no idea just how many he had already passed. Although I already knew that there were extremely many lower worlds, now that I've truly witnessed how many there are, it's just indescribable. The Tianyuan continent I stayed on in the past is only one of the images among all of these, Jian Chen thought. Jian Chen and Shen Jian completely lost the notion of time as they moved through the tunnel. They had no idea just how long they had been traveling for. Along the way, they would come across chaotic spatial streams, but they would avoid it safely. Finally, they saw the exit of the tunnel. There were barren plains, stretching as far as the eye could see. Apart from some huge birds that shot through the sky with lightning speed, there was not a single living thing to be seen. But at this moment, the space in the sky suddenly distorted violently. A huge space gate suddenly appeared, and two figures fell out from it, hitting the land heavily and kicking up a cloud of dust. Chapter 1667. The first encounter with godhood. The two people who fell out of the space gate were Jian Chen and Shen Jian. As the gravitational force and density of space were much, much greater than the Tianyuan continent they were on before, they immediately felt like an extraordinarily heavy mountain had crashed down on them as soon as they emerged from the tunnel. It pushed them heavily into the floor as they were unprepared. Jian Chen stood up with a perfect flip. He brushed off the dust and soil on him while observing the foreign world. He could sense extremely powerful laws of the world in this world, which filled every inch of the surroundings. The origin energy here was so dense that it had exceeded anything Jian Chen could imagine. He would basically absorb a large quantity of it without any difficulty at all with every single breath. Compared to here, the world of Forsaken Saints seemed like a remote, lackluster village. Aside from this, what Jian Chen felt the most clearly was the increased gravity. It was more than a dozen times more powerful than on the Tianyuan continent, while the density of space had reached a stunning level as well. If the space of the Tianyuan continent and the world of Forsaken Saints were a thin layer of paper, space here would be like a steel plate. No, even describing it as a steel plate would be undermining the toughness of space here. It was many times tougher than steel. Is this the Saints' world? Jian Chen looked around and said excitedly. The abundance of origin energy in this world gave him hopes of breaking through with his chaotic body. The laws of the world are so powerful, origin energy is so dense, and even the gravity in space is so strong. This should be the Saints' world, Shen Jian said as he brushed off the dust on him. He raised his head to look around, and he too was excited. Let's find a remote place to enter seclusion fist. I need to break through to godhood as soon as possible. Only then will we have a better chance of surviving here, Shen Jian added. His strength had already reached the limits of reciprocity in the lower world. He had also comprehended the laws of the world, having been in possession of the key to godhood since quite some time ago. However, the laws of the world in the lower world prevented people from reaching godhood, so he immediately became quite eager to break through after arriving in the Saints' world. Sure. I can use that time to gain an even deeper understanding of the Saints' world from Fairy Hao Yu, said Jian Chen. Then he started to fly away from their current location. With the increased gravitational force and density of space in the Saints' world, Jian Chen and Shen Jian's speed was significantly affected as a result. They could no longer cross millions or even tens of millions kilometers with a single step like before. Aside from that, their consumption of energy was several times more rapid as they flew, while the radius their souls could envelope was restricted as well. Jian Chen, I need to absorb origin energy to recover my body, so I won't be able to help you to do anything aside from informing you about the Saints' world. If you come across any enemies, you'll have to handle them yourself. Please remember to keep my divine hall safe. My divine hall had some uses on the Tianyuan continent, but in here, probably any reciprocity expert could smash through it. Fairy Hao Yu's voice rang out in Jian Chen's head. Fairy Hao Yu, please don't worry. As long as I'm alive, I'll protect your divine hall with my life. I have quite a few people in there as well after all, smiled Jian Chen. With the strength of you and Shen Jian, you'll still be able to protect yourself against any godhood enemies. But your friends will be completely helpless against them, so for their safety, just let them stay in my divine hall for now, Fairy Hao Yu said. Jian Chen and Shen Jian had no objections to such a suggestion, so they agreed happily. Jian Chen and Shen Jian flew through the barren plains at a steady pace, searching for a suitable place to enter secluded cultivation so Shen Jian could break through. There is people up ahead. Suddenly, Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. Very far ahead from them, a small group composed of a little over 10 people had appeared. 1 reciprocity, 2 returnants, and 4 receival. The rest are all Saint Emperors, Xinjian said calmly. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes, and he continued. They are the first cultivators we've seen on these plains after flying for half a day. Let's go ask them some things so we can understand the situation around here. Jian Chen nodded and changed direction with Shen Jian, directly flying towards the group of people. The group clearly noticed the 2 of them as well, so they became cautious. However, at this moment, Jian Chen's face changed. He came to a halt and said in a gruff voice, "Wait, there's a godhood expert hurrying over here." With that, Shen Jian sensed a powerful presence approach the area at a rapid pace. His face also changed. He stood beside Jian Chen cautiously. A few seconds later, a red figure shot over like a comet. He flew over from afar extremely quickly and seemed to be in a great hurry as if he was fleeing for his life. With his approach, a powerful pressure flooded the surroundings, as well as a powerful pulse of energy that was enough to cause the expressions of Jian Chen and Xin Jian to change. The figure did not seem to be hurrying towards Jian Chen and the small group before. He only seemed to be passing by and came across them coincidentally. However, when the fire-red figure discovered that there were other people up ahead, he suddenly changed directions and directly flew towards the small group of people. In the blink of an eye, he arrived before them. Flames roared around him as he hovered in the sky, looking just like a god of fire. However, his vicious wounds were clearly visible through the roaring flames, as well as his pale face and the residual blood at the corner of his lips. He was evidently injured. "Be careful. That person's a late deity." Fairy Hao Yu's voice rang out sternly. If she still possessed her strength from before, someone like that would only be as insignificant as an ant. However, she had to treat him cautiously now. Jian Chen and Shen Jian looked at each other. They had never thought that they would come across a godhood expert as soon as they arrived in the saint's world, and they would be so strong. "You've appeared at the perfect time. You can help me heal." Undying body of flames. Suddenly, the fire-red figure bellowed out, and the flames around him surged, turning into a sea of fire that engulfed the small group up ahead. Facing the attack of the godhood expert, in particular, a late deity, it was impossible for the small group to resist. They could not even flee, so they were directly swallowed up by the sea fire and instantly vaporize. As they died, the fire devoured a portion of their life force and origin energy, becoming a part of the energy that healed the man. When the sea of fire vanished, the presence he gave off had palpably become much stronger. Jian Chen and Shen Jian became grim. They looked at each other and could sense that the situation was not great. As expected, the man surrounded in flames arrived before Jian Chen and Shen Jian after killing off the small group. Chapter 1668. Deity Lu Fei. It's actually a late reciprocity cultivator. Judging from your presence, you should have reached the limits of late reciprocity, but you haven't comprehended the laws of the world yet, so you're stuck at reciprocity. If you didn't appear here today and met me, you might be able to reach godhood one day in the future, but it's a pity that you'll never have that opportunity ever again. Become the nourishment to heal me. Remember my name, the name of the person who will take your lives. Lu Fei. The man in flames smiled viciously. He looked at Jian Chen and Xin Jian like they were already dead. "Lu Fei, do you really think that you can handle us? We have no intentions of being your enemy, but if you insist, you can't blame us for being merciless," Jian Chen said coldly. Although he was grim, he showed no fear or fluster at all. Lu Fei's eyes narrowed, and he glared at Jian Chen. He sneered, "You sure do talk big. Although I can't see your exact cultivation level, I can blurrily sense that you should be at reciprocity. Even if I'm wrong and you possessed strength at godhood, you still can't change the situation." With that, killing intent exploded in Lu Fei's eyes. With a bellow, he used his undying body of flames again, and the flames on him immediately surged, rolling towards Jian Chen and Shen Jian as a sea of fire. A gleam of light flashed through Shen Jian and Jian Chen's eyes. With the crisp thrum of a sword, a dark sword appeared in Shen Jian's hand silently. He fused with the sword, charging into the sea of flames as a resplendent streak of light, killing his way towards Lu Fei as if he were unstoppable. Jian Chen's gaze sharpened as if he had become a drawn sword, filled with sharpness. At that moment, he seemed to have become a sword himself, even though there was not one in his hands. His finger swept past the space before him gently, and an invisible sword Qi immediately split the sea of flames that surged over rapidly. Shen Jian had fused with the sword, becoming an extremely powerful and resplendent streak of light. He flew along the path that Jian Chen had opened up as his cloud stream sword directly stabbed towards Lu Fei's forehead with a dazzling glow. You've actually comprehended the laws. I've underestimated you. Lu Fei's eyes narrowed, and he immediately became rather stern. He clenched his hand, and the sea of flames in the surroundings surged, forming a palm of fire instantly. Not only did the palm of fire give off a powerful pulse of energy enough to surprise Jian Chen and Shen Jian, but it also grabbed Shen Jian's sword with a sliver of the laws of fire. You've reached the limits of reciprocity and comprehended the laws of the world. If you had some more time, you would be able to reach godhood at any time, but it's just a pity that you'll never get that opportunity again. Even if you ignore the difference in cultivation, the difference between our comprehension is insurmountable as well. Lu Fei sighed gently. He looked at Shen Jian and Jian Chen in pity, but the pity quickly transformed into a cold killing intent. To him, both Jian Chen and Shen Jian would become nourishment to heal his wounds. Lu Fei extended a finger gently and a red light shot from its tip. It traveled towards the center of Shen Jian's forehead with the laws of fire. Formbreaker. Suddenly, Shen Jian bellowed out, and the cloud stream sword immediately exploded with light. He slashed towards the beam of light. The attack contained a mysterious power that could destroy everything in the world, specifically targeting anything with a form. As he slashed out, Lu Fei's palm of fire was immediately cut in half. The laws of fire in the palm clashed with Shen Jian's laws of the sword and was actually suppressed, limiting the strength it could display. Afterwards, the cloud stream sword became a blur and stabbed the beam of red light containing the laws of fire. With a boom, the red light immediately shattered, expanding into the surroundings as powerful ripples of energy. The ripples of energy blew Shen Jian backwards. Although he possessed battle prowess at godhood, he was still a long way away from Lu Fei in terms of cultivation. On the other hand, Lu Fei paid no attention to the ripple of energy. The energy struck his body and failed to move him at all. He stared fixedly at Shen Jian as disbelief flooded his face. Your comprehension of laws is actually greater than mine. Impossible, this is impossible. Lu Fei cried out as his heart began to surge. He was a late deity and was quite close to becoming a god, yet someone who had not even reached godhood had actually surpassed his comprehension in terms of laws. He struggled to accept this. But at this moment, a feeling of coldness suddenly rose up in Lu Fei's heart. He saw Jian Chen arrive before him with lightning speed. His fingers formed a sword, emitting a beam of light that was just as long as a standard sword from his fingers. He stabbed it coldly and mercilessly towards Lu Fei. Lu Fei's face changed. He had not sensed any power from Jian Chen as Jian Chen had never moved against him. Only after they began fighting did he discover in shock that Jian Chen was actually much more powerful than Shen Jian. He felt a strong sense of threat from Jian Chen's attack. Lu Fei finally became grim. No longer willing to be careless, he struck out as hard as he could. A fire-red sword appeared in his hand and his laws of fire condensed. He stabbed out with all his strength. The sword Qi Jian Chen condensed collided with Lu Fei's sword. Sword Qi and sparks shot off in all directions. Lu Fei's laws of fire and Jian Chen's laws of the sword collided and the laws of fire became suppressed. They dispersed rapidly. He was not Jian Chen's opponent in terms of comprehension. Impossible. How can your laws be stronger as well? It's also greater than mine. Who are the two of you? Lu Fei was shocked. He had lost all composure. He had never thought that he would come across two people so powerful on these simple plains. Their cultivation was clearly not very great, but their comprehension of laws was frightening. Even he, a late deity, could not rival them. Jian Chen did not respond. His gaze remained cold, and he stabbed out a second time at extremely fast speed. The sword Qi had already arrived before Lu Fei, directly targeting Lu Fei's forehead. Lu Fei shot backwards and swiveled his head to the side, barely dodging the fatal attack. However, the sword Qi had cut off some of his hair. Apart from shock, his gaze towards Jian Chen and Shen Jian now possessed a certain coldness. Then he formed a series of hand seals and the origin energy in the surroundings immediately surged over, condensing into a sword of fire that was 300 meters long. It dyed the surroundings red and clouds of fire seemed to condense high in the air. Since I can't directly devour you, I'll kill you and devour you afterwards. Once I devour the two of you, I should be able to recover by quite a lot. Truth Tier Battle Skill. Python Sword of Scarlet Flames. Lu Fei bellowed out, and the sword chi above him immediately turned into a streak of red light, shooting towards Jian Chen. The tip of the sword chi had turned into the vicious head of a snake. At that moment, Jian Chen had actually forced Lu Fei to use a battle skill as a powerful late deity. The battle skill was extremely powerful, having reached the same level as the immortal tier from the immortal's world. It made Jian Chen turn grim. Daluo sword. Jian Chen bellowed out and formed a seal with his hands. He shone with golden light and a golden sword chi condensed from nowhere. It shot towards Lu Fei's truth tier battle skill. With the increase in Jian Chen's chaotic body, the Daluo sword he used right now was much more powerful than when he used it on the Tian Yuan continent. He had used an immortal tier sword technique to deal with Lu Fei's battle skill that was at a corresponding level in the Saint's world, the truth tier. With a boom, the Daluo sword collided viciously with the Python Sword of Scarlet Flames. The golden and red light interweaved, creating a resplendent display of light. Lu Fei's truth tier battle skill began to disperse, while Jian Chen's Daluo sword was reduced to half a meter in length. It shot across the sky as a golden streak of light and penetrated Lu Fei's chest under his gaze of disbelief. Lu Fei's body shuddered, and blood spurted from his mouth. He staggered a few dozen meters backwards before stabilizing himself. With a flash of black, Shen Jian's Cloud Stream sword shot over as well, slashing across Lu Fei's neck. It almost beheaded Lu Fei. Lu Fei became even paler, and the flame around him dulled in color. Not only did he fail to devour Jian Chen and Shen Jian to recover, but he had also sustained heavy wounds in their battle. He had bitten off more than he could chew. I never thought that I'm not the opponent of the two of them. If this continues, I'll definitely be defeated. I'll struggle to flee even if the ancestor of the Lu family arrives. I have to flee. Whatever. I'll remember the two of them for now and make them pay some other day. Lu Fei no longer wanted to fight anymore. With a single moment, he turned into a blur and fled as quickly as he could. Lu Fei fled extremely quickly. Neither Jian Chen or Shen Jian could match his flying speed. After all, there was still a disparity between their cultivation levels. A gleam of light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes as he watched Lu Fei flee. He formed a seal with both hands before turning into a bolt of lightning. He pursued Lu Fei at an unbelievable speed. It was the linear lightning release. That's impossible. His speed. Lu Fei was utterly shocked when he saw Jian Chen race over like a bolt of lightning. This time, he no longer had any time to dodge. Jian Chen passed through his body with lightning speed. Jian Chen would not have been able to catch up to Lu Fei with just flight, but he also knew sword techniques. The linear lightning release was a sword technique with extraordinary speed. It could be used as both an offensive measure and a way to chase others down. Lu Fei's eyes widened, and disbelief flooded his face. However, the light in his eyes faded rapidly, and they became glassy. Afterwards, his body split into two right down the center. Not only had the bolt of lightning split his body into two when it passed through him, but it had also obliterated his soul. I never thought that I could kill a late deity so easily after my chaotic body reached the 9th layer. Not to mention, because of my chaotic Niden state, I can only use 80% of my strength. Jian Chen sighed in amazement inside as he looked at Lu Fei's corpse. He took Lu Fei's space ring and said, however, this Lu Fei was injured. If he were at his peak condition, killing him would not have been so easy. Chapter 1669. A battle against a god. Shen Jian flew over from afar and said as he stared at Lu Fei's corpse, experts really are as common as the clouds in the saint's world. Just this single person we came across accidentally was a late deity. If he progressed a little more in his cultivation, he would have become a god. I need to find a safe place to break through as soon as possible. Shen Jian became even more impatient to break through to godhood after the battle with Lu Fei. However, there was nowhere to hide from sight on the barren plains, and they would encounter people from time to time. Clearly, this was not a good place to break through. Jian Chen thought of the Anata Tower. The Anata Tower was damaged, but it was a good place to break through. However, Jian Chen did not dare to take it out after arriving in the saint's world as he feared that extremely powerful people would sense its presence. Let's leave here quickly. This Lu Fei seemed to be fleeing for his life earlier. With his wounds, someone must have been chasing him. We can't stay here for long, Jian Chen said to Shen Jian. He played around with the space ring that he had taken from Lu Fei, before putting it away. Now was not the time to check through its contents. However, just when Jian Chen said these words, an extremely powerful presence arrived from afar. It blanketed the surroundings and surged into the sky, kicking up gales and causing the clouds to churn. The presence contained both rage and icy cold killing intent. Let's go! The expressions of Jian Chen and Shen Jian changed. Without any hesitation, they immediately flew off into the distance as fast as possible. The owner of the presence pressured them several times more than Lu Fei. He was an extremely powerful expert, having surpassed deity. Without a single thought, Jian Chen and Shen Jian were certain that he was the person pursuing Lu Fei. Lu Fei was already dead, but just in case, the two of them still chose to leave the area. A few seconds after Jian Chen and Shen Jian left the scene, a blurry, gray figure shot over from afar. He moved so quickly that he was several times faster than Lu Fei. He radiated with a powerful presence, so great that the ground beneath him sank. His icy, heavy killing intent reduced all the withered grass on the plains to dust. Very soon, the gray figure arrived before Lu Fei's corpse. Only then did his appearance become visible. He was an old man who seemed to be past his 70s. He wore gray robes, while his gray hair drifted in the wind behind. He was hawk-nosed, and his deep eyes were sharp. They shone brightly, while his face was terrifyingly sunken. The old man stared at Lu Fei's corpse for a while. When he discovered that Lu Fei's space ring had actually vanished, his gaze immediately became extremely terrifying. His killing intent rose rapidly until it peaked. It's impossible for you to steal the treasure of my Lu family. The gray-robed old man's face was extremely sunken as he spoke icily. He immediately expanded his soul and found the traces left behind by Jian Chen and Shen Jian when they fled a while ago. He immediately shot off in pursuit as a gray blur. The laws were powerful, and the space was tough in the Saints' world. Let alone Origin Realm experts, even Godhood experts with extremely great mastery over the laws of space would not be able to create a space gate. As a result, the old man could only fly despite his strength. Jian Chen and Shen Jian also discovered the old man's pursuit. The two of them were not even as fast as Lu Fei, so it was impossible for them to escape from the old man who moved several times faster than Lu Fei. They directly stopped and hovered in the sky, waiting for the old man's arrival. Very soon, the old man appeared before Jian Chen and Shen Jian. He directly stood in their way. His face was sunken, and he said coldly, "Did you kill Lu Fei? We were only passing by earlier, and we came across Lu Fei accidentally. He wanted to devour the two of us. As he was injured, he failed to devour the two of us in the end and was killed instead. May I ask for your name, Senior?" Jian Chen clasped his fist and said without any particular modesty or haughtiness, "Jian Chen, this person is an early god. You have to be careful." Fairy Hao Yu's voice rang out in Jian Chen's head, causing Jian Chen to become even more stern. Although early gods were only a single cultivation level higher than late deities, the difference between the cultivation levels was extraordinarily large. Shen Jian also became extremely stern. He could tell that the old man probably would not let them go from how he behaved and reacted. They could not avoid battle. "You came across him accidentally? Ha ha ha, what a perfectly timed accident. Lu Fei is one of my Lu family's 6 great godhood experts, as well as one of my elders. It's a pity that a mysterious organization successfully bribed him, so he betrayed the family. He even obtained a powerful formation disc to trap me, and then he snuck into our forbidden grounds to take the treasure of my Lu family. Yet, when I broke free and pursued him here, he just happened to be slain by the two of you. The treasure he stole must have ended up in your hands. You describe this all as an accident. Do you really think that I'm as easily tricked as a child?" The old man laughed aloud. His gaze towards Jian Chen and Shen Jian became even colder, and he roared out, "Speak, who sent you?" "Senior, Lu Fei was indeed slain by us, but we have no connections to the organization behind him at all. I've spoken the truth. Whether you believe it or not is up to you," Jian Chen said emotionlessly. He knew that the old man had already mistaken their accidental encounter with Lu Fei and Lu Fei's death. In the old man's eyes, killing Lu Fei was just an act of silencing someone. "Humph, and you still want to twist the truth? As one of my grandsons, no one understands Lu Fei's strength better than me. How could he have been killed so easily by the two of you as a late deity? Not to mention, one of you is still at reciprocity. If I've guessed correctly, you two must have been sent by the organization behind Lu Fei to receive him, and they've only sent people below godhood to avoid raising attention, as well as to catch Lu Fei off guard. You then used the trump card you obtained from the organization supporting you to deal a sneak attack to Lu Fei, killing him. That way, you will succeed in both obtaining my family's treasure and silencing others. That way, you don't have to worry about me working out the organization supporting you through any remaining traces. Am I right? The old man's voice became even more frigid. Killing intent surged from him like a flood, becoming extremely dense. The more he analyzed the situation, the more correct he felt his conjecture was. Although he had seen traces of the battle earlier, he refused to believe that Jian Chen and Shen Jian could kill Lu Fei with just their strength. Instead, he believed that it was due to a treasure they had obtained from the organization supporting them. Speak, what is the organization's behind the two of you? I might spare your lives if you tell me, but if you don't, I can only take you back with me and torture you in all kinds of ways until you confess. The old man approached Jian Chen and Shen Jian slowly as he radiated with an extremely powerful pressure, squashing down on Jian Chen and Shen Jian. Now that the situation has developed to a point like this, there's no point in talking anymore. Do it. Jian Chen said to Shen Jian through a communication technique. He formed a seal with his hand, and he immediately shone with golden light. A massive, golden sword qi condensed in a single moment, shooting towards the old man. Jian Chen did not dare to hold back at all against a god. He used his full strength right from the start, using the immortal tear sword technique, the Daluo sword. Chapter 1670. Corruption. At the same time, Shen Jian's presence changed abruptly. His hair danced and his clothes ruffled despite the absence of wind. He radiated with an extremely powerful sword qi. As he slowly raised the cloud stream sword in his hand, he immediately began to glimmer with starlight. At that moment, the space around the cloud stream sword seemed to have transformed into an endless starry sky. A will that splits the heavens. The sword shakes and stars shatter. Shen Jian suddenly bellowed out. The cloud stream sword was swung forwards as it shook violently. As the sword moved, a visible ripple rushed towards the gray-robed old man destructively. It moved extremely quickly. Wherever the ripple passed by, the ground cracked, and dust was kicked into the air. The dead grass all turned to powder. A will that splits the heavens was the strongest sword technique Shen Jian had learned so far. The attack possessed the power to destroy planets in the lower world. However, everything in the Saints' world was much tougher than the Tianyuan continent, so his devastating sword technique failed to cause a lot of severe damage in the Saints' world. So the two of you have comprehended laws. I've underestimated you before, but now you're done for. The gray-robed old man was at ease and did not treat Jian Chen and Shen Jian with any caution at all. With a wave of his sleeve, the origin energy in the surroundings immediately began to surge, instantly condensing into two powerful strands of sword qi. They shot towards Jian Chen and Shen Jian respectively with roaring flames. Boom! Jian Chen's Daluo sword was directly dispersed by the old man's sword qi, erupting with powerful ripples of energy. It knocked Jian Chen back in a constant retreat. At the same time, the ripples from Shen Jian's attack came in contact with the old man's sword qi. The ripples immediately began to distort violently, before dispersing at a rapid rate. The old man had nullified the terrifying ripples that could easily destroy planets in a lower world just like that. At the same time, after tearing through the ripples, the old man's sword qi did not disperse. It only became much weaker than before. It then continued without slowing down at all, traveling towards Shen Jian as a streak of red light. Formbreaker. Shen Jian became extremely stern. After bellowing out, the cloud stream sword shone with dazzling white light, landing on the sword qi as a blur. Boom! The old man's sword qi finally dispersed, exploding mid-air as scarlet flames. Meanwhile, Shen Jian was blown backwards as blood spurted from his mouth. The difference in their strength was just too significant. One was at the peak of reciprocity, while the other was a god. Even with Shen Jian's extraordinary talent, he was unable to make up for this gaping disparity. Jian Chen was in no position to care for Shen Jian. He became unprecedentedly stern, and he maintained a hand seal. A golden sword qi immediately condensed, and he continued his attack against the old man with the Daluo sword. At the same time, his other hand did not just sit around idly either. It also formed a hand seal. You better use all your trump cards. Just this isn't enough to threaten me, the old man said coldly. With a wave of his sleeve, he destroyed Jian Chen's Daluo sword without any effort at all. It was also at this moment that Jian Chen suddenly began to shine with dazzling white light. He seemed to have transformed into a bolt of light, shooting towards the old man with unbelievable speed. He arrived before the old man in a single moment. The old man's eyes narrowed abruptly. At that moment, Jian Chen had even reached speeds beyond what his eyes could see. He only managed to capture a blur with his soul. This speed, the old man was shocked. The speed Jian Chen displayed was just too fast in that moment, fast to the point where he found it to be rather unbelievable. He was still several hundred meters away one moment ago, yet he seemed to have teleported before him in the next moment. It had caught him slightly off guard. Spurt! The sword qi condensed at the tip of Jian Chen's finger stabbed into the old man, but it was met with an extremely great resistance, preventing it from going any further. The tremendous energy in the old man's body had stopped the penetration of Jian Chen's sword qi as soon as possible. At the same time, the old man's palm landed heavily on Jian Chen's chest. Jian Chen immediately paled and a mist of blood spurt out from his mouth. He shot backwards like a broken kite. The old man's attack had reduced his clothes to dust. However, Jian Chen did not weaken at all after being injured. Instead, his battle intent became even more substantial. There was a vague craziness within his sharp eyes. As his hand seals changed, he suddenly came to a halt. At that moment, all the energy within him was pushed to the maximum, and the laws of the sword condensed around him. He began to advance, using his body as a sword of laws to tear through all obstructions in the world. He charged towards the old man as if he were unstoppable. Tai sword technique. The old man's face was extremely dark. With a cold snort, a red sword appeared in his hand. The sword danced and immediately turned into Dragon of Flames as he charged towards Jian Chen with a bellow. The craziness in Jian Chen's eyes became even more intense, and a few specks of red light flickered. With his body as a sword, he seemed to have become a streak of light as he charged at the Dragon of Flames. With a boom, the Dragon of Flames immediately erupted, reduced to energy ripples that shook up the surroundings. Jian Chen let out a few more mouthfuls of blood, but he continued towards the old man without slowing down at all. I sure have underestimated you, the old man said coldly. His sword trembled and he stabbed out 3 times with lightning speed. Each stab left behind a terrifying wound on Jian Chen's body. The third stab in particular pierced Jian Chen's right shoulder, almost chopping off his right arm altogether. Jian Chen's right hand seemed to have become a sharp sword, stabbing into the old man's chest. His fingers emerged from the old man's back, covered in the blood of a god. The old man grunted, and his gaze towards Jian Chen finally became slightly stern. Jolting his body as hard as he could, he knocked Jian Chen far away. Afterwards, he left behind an afterimage with a single movement and caught up with Jian Chen instantly. He stabbed out with lightning speed with his fire-red sword, directly towards Jian Chen's forehead. Shen Jian's face changed at the sight of that. He immediately wanted to charge over to stop the old man. However, at this moment, a presence filled with evilness and destruction erupted from Jian Chen's body. His pupils had completely become blood-red at that moment, while his head full of long hair began to redden at a visible rate as well. Jian Chen's sudden transformation caused the old man's eyes to narrow. He felt cold from the bottom of his heart due to Jian Chen's evil and destructive presence, as well as a sliver of uneasiness. Shen Jian's face changed as well, staring at Jian Chen in disbelief. He actually sensed the presence of the crisis of the world from Jian Chen. What is this presence? The old man was surprised, and he could not help but slow down his stab towards Jian Chen. However, before long, his gaze turned cold, and his sword immediately turned into a streak of red light, continuing along the same trajectory as before. Chapter 1671. Might of the profound sword qi. At that crucial moment, 2 resplendent balls of light emerged from Jian Chen, one azure and one violet. They turned into 2 swords that shot towards the old man. Ding! The twin swords collided heavily against the old man's red sword. There was the screeching of metal as residual sword qi was sent flying off in all directions. When it struck the tough ground, it left behind deep holes. The twin swords retreated right after the clash, arriving above Jian Chen's head. Jian Chen gripped the Ziying sword, and his head full of red hair began to dance despite the lack of wind. His red pupils stared at the gray-robed old man emotionlessly. He had completely lost his mind and himself in that moment, only leaving behind an instinctive desire for destruction and slaughter. He had also gripped the Ziying sword out of instinct. Shen Jian stood from afar as he stared fixedly at Jian Chen. He became extremely stern because he could no longer sense any familiarity from Jian Chen at all. There was only a sense of unfamiliarity. He had almost thought that Jian Chen had become the crisis of the world because Jian Chen just felt too similar to the crisis of the world right now. Jian Chen! Shen Jian bellowed out thunderously in an attempt to wake Jian Chen from his corrupted state. He had already guessed that something probably went wrong when he was cultivating in the blood-red cloud. However, Jian Chen did not respond at all. It was like he did not hear Shen Jian's call at all. At the same time, the voices of the sword spirits rang out in Jian Chen's head. They were frantic as they tried to awaken him, but they also failed. Suddenly, there was a flash of red light that shot towards Jian Chen with a ball of intense flames. The old man wielded his fire-red sword, and his presence surged. He directly charged towards Jian Chen with heavy killing intent. At the same time, the corrupted Jian Chen moved as well. He turned into a red blur and began to clash with the old man. Even though Jian Chen had lost his mind after being corrupted, where only the instincts for destruction and slaughter remained, he had become even more powerful than before. Violet and Azure Sword Qi shook up the surrounding space within the flames, wreaking havoc in the surroundings by spreading as powerful ripples of energy. The ground sank, and dust was kicked into the air, causing the region where they fought to become hazy. For that period of time, Jian Chen actually managed to fight against the early god on equal grounds, having been corrupted and using the twin swords. The great disparity in their strength had been made up all of a sudden. Jian Chen also used various sword techniques one after another. He used the Daluo sword, Tai sword technique, and linear lightning release several times. He had not regained his consciousness and instead used the sword techniques completely out of his instincts. Jian Chen and the old man became more and more injured. Both of them were covered in blood, but they fought even more intensely as time went on. However, at a closer glance, there were several times more wounds on Jian Chen than the old man. He had clearly lost the upper hand. However, the greatness of the chaotic body was fully demonstrated at that moment. Even after losing his mind, his chaotic body's superior regeneration remained, so his wounds actually healed at a visible rate. However, the rate of regeneration was nowhere as fast as the rate at which he was injured. The old man narrowed his eyes at the sight of this. He became extremely shocked. What is this cultivation method? It's so amazing. Not only can it allow deities to fight against gods, but just the regeneration is so powerful as well. If I obtain this cultivation method... Thinking this, a sliver of greed immediately appeared in the old man's eyes. Although he knew that there would be downsides to the cultivation method, he could accept and work with some disadvantages, given that his strength could skyrocket. For that moment, the old man began to fight even fiercer. In just a few clashes, Jian Chen gained a few more terrifying wounds. In the end, the old man even used his hand to grab the two swords while he used a truth tier battle skill with his left hand. He created a colossal hand that pressed against Jian Chen's chest gently, but the move contained a destructive might. Truth tier battle skills used by gods possessed extraordinary power. With a heavy boom, Jian Chen's chest exploded. The terrifying power from the truth tier battle skill wreaked havoc wildly in his body. Not only did it destroy all his organs, but all his bones also turned to dust as well. He was extremely heavily injured. Jian Chen spurted blood from his mouth as he collapsed far away. His entire skeleton had been turned into dust, so he could no longer stand up. He lay on the ground powerlessly. But unexpectedly, his consciousness actually began to return gradually after suffering the extremely heavy wound. The redness in his eyes gradually vanished, and his blood-red hair began to turn black again. Very soon, Jian Chen's mind returned. He returned to normal, but when he sensed his wounds, he could not help but smile bitterly. He could not even stand. He had no idea how long it had been since he had been injured so heavily. If he did not cultivate the chaotic body, he probably would have been reduced to mincemeat the moment the old man's truth tier battle skill struck him. His soul would have been wiped out. The old man dripped with blood as he arrived before Jian Chen step by step. He reached towards Jian Chen, planning to take Jian Chen back with him to the Lu family and slowly get Jian Chen's cultivation method from him. Shen Jian gritted his teeth when he saw Jian Chen's dangerous situation. He began to cast the second move of a will that splits the heavens, regardless of the consequences. He had used the second move once against the crisis of the world. That time, he had paid an extremely heavy price to use it, but he had no other choices left in the current situation. A will that splits the heavens. You mere reciprocity cultivator, piss off. However, before Shen Jian could use the second move, the old man directly sent a sword chi towards him that pierced his body. Shen Jian was immediately knocked backwards as he vomited blood. He had become pale. The old man did not even glance at Shen Jian. His attention was completely fixated on Jian Chen. He directly reached towards Jian Chen excitedly. Just as the old man was about to grab him, a cold light suddenly flickered through Jian Chen's eyes. All of a sudden, a dazzling white light began to radiate from Jian Chen. A strand of white sword chi that was only the size of a finger had appeared above his head. It seemed tiny and underwhelming, but the wind and clouds in the surroundings immediately began to churn as soon as it appeared. The originally calm origin energy became violent at that moment as well. Wild streams of energy wreaked havoc high in the sky. Even the power of laws that was basically present everywhere became slightly disorderly. What is that? The old man's hand came to a halt. He stared at the tiny sword chi hovering quietly above Jian Chen's head. He felt a frightening power from the sword chi that was only the size of a finger. The sword chi was so great that it was enough to destroy him. Before the old man could think too much about it, the finger-sized sword chi shot towards him as a streak of white light. The moment it shot off, the air seemed to freeze and time seemed to arrive at a standstill as well. Everything in the world fell silent. Only the sword chi was present, becoming the only existence in the world as its radiance replaced the sun. It shot forwards as it destroyed any origin energy in its way and cleaved through the laws of the world. Even though the old man was a god, he was just unable to dodge the sword chi. He immediately pulled out several discs from his space ring. Each formation disc was a rather powerful defensive treasure as they enveloped him with screens of light. However, the treasures seemed to become extremely fragile when the profound sword chi struck them. They turned to dust silently, and then the profound sword chi passed through the old man's body. The old man's presence withered rapidly as blood constantly spurted from his mouth. He became sheet white. Not only did he suffer extremely heavy wounds the moment the profound sword chi passed through his body, but it had also severed a part of his vital essences, his cultivation, as well as a part of his soul. A huge, gaping hole had appeared in the old man's chest. The flesh and blood that belonged to the area had vanished entirely. It was a horrific sight. The old man stared at Jian Chen in shock. He forcefully endured the weakness he experienced as well as the stabbing pain from his soul. Without any hesitation, he took out a formation disc from his space ring and threw it at his feet. He fled with a flash of white light. He had no choice but to flee. The wounds from the profound sword chi were just too heavy. Even though he had managed to keep his life intact, he no longer had any more strength to fight. In particular, the stabbing pain from his soul even made him feel like he would faint at any time. He had become as weak as a mortal at that moment. Only death awaited him if he did not flee. Chapter 1672. Falling unconscious, Jian Chen lay on the ground powerlessly. His face was completely pale, and he was currently extremely weak. The profound sword chi was very powerful, but using it was not an easy matter for him. At that moment, he felt like all the power of his soul had been drained away. He felt a strong sense of drowsiness, as well as some pain from his head. Even his consciousness had blurred. He could lose consciousness at any time. Using the profound sword chi drained the power of his soul. If he had used the profound sword chi in his peak condition, the power of his soul would not have been completely drained, but the prior battle had taken a certain toll on the power of his soul, especially since he was in a corrupted state. As a result, when he used the profound sword chi towards the end, he had almost run out of the power of his soul. Jian Chen's consciousness blurred as he stared in direction in which the old man had fled. Finally, he could no longer endure it, and darkness descended. He had fallen unconscious. To another side, Shen Jian struggled to his feet. He took out a jade bottle from his space ring and opened its lid, pouring a few recovery pills into his mouth. Then he staggered to Jian Chen's side and fed him some of the pills. Next, he carried Jian Chen and flew away in a tottering fashion. Shen Jian had no idea if any more godhood experts would come in pursuit from the Liu family. Now that Jian Chen had fallen unconscious, and he was heavily injured, the two of them might end up dying here if more trouble arrived. As a result, He carried Jian Chen and left the region as quickly as he could. Shen Jian's wounds healed extremely gradually. He was just too heavily injured, and since a god had injured him, his recovery was even more difficult. Even the medicine only managed to stop his condition from worsening. Red light still flickered on his wounds. The red light was the residual power from Old Man's laws of fire when he injured Shen Jian. The power of laws was something even beyond origin energy. It was the representation of godhood. If the power of laws had injured any regular origin realm expert, it would have been fatal. However, as Shen Jian had also grasped the power of laws, and his comprehension of the laws was no less than the old man's laws of fire did not pose a great of a threat as initially imagined. In fact, under the suppression of Shen Jian's law of the sword, the residual power was unable to harm him anymore. It was just that he was in a hurry to run right now, so he did not have the power to deal with the laws of fire. He could only keep it suppressed for now. Shen Jian lowered his head to look at Jian Chen, who he carried under his arm. When he discovered that the power from the laws of fire in Jian Chen's wounds was gradually fading, he immediately became both surprised and envious. He sighed in amazement. I really do wonder what kind of cultivation method you practice that gives you such a powerful body and regeneration. You're able to waste away the laws of fire just with your body's regeneration. This wasn't the first time Shen Jian had praised Jian Chen's chaotic body. Back when he was still slightly weaker than Xiongzhong, Jian Chen had managed to repel Xiongzhong with his tough body and otherworldly regeneration rate. Afterwards, during the battle between him and Jian Chen where they split the moon in half, he was clearly stronger than Jian Chen. Yet Jian Chen managed to hold his ground against him with a chaotic body, resulting in injuries to both of them in the end. Yet now, the toughness and regeneration of his chaotic body had matched up to how quickly the residual laws of fire could cause damage. He had even used the regeneration of his body to wear out the power from the laws of fire. Shen Jian fled with Jian Chen. Darkness descended and dawn broke again. After a day and night of flying, even Shen Jian no longer had any idea just how much distance he had crossed. He only knew that he had made his way out of the barren plains. Traveling in the Saints' world was much more difficult than on the Tianyuan continent. Not only was one's speed limited, but it would also take up a great deal of energy as well. Shen Jian struggled to support himself any more after the great battle, and subsequently fleeing for so long with his heavy wounds. In the end, he stopped by the side of a small lake. I have to cleanse the residual powers of the laws of fire from my wounds, or they won't heal. Shen Jian collapsed on the ground as he breathed heavily. He no longer had the power to travel. He immediately closed his eyes and used the power of the laws of the sword to purge the laws of fire from his wounds. The laws of fire were not Shen Jian's opponent as they had lost their source. Very soon, they were completely purged, while Shen Jian's consciousness faded after purging the laws of fire as well. He fell unconscious. Before long, the whistling of wind suddenly rang out in the sky. A treasure made for flight flew over. It was 300 meters long. There were several dozen black-clothed men on the vehicle who observed the surroundings. They stood there like guards. Every single one of them gave off quite a powerful presence. They were actually all of the origin realm. At the very front of the vehicle were two women in luxurious clothes. They were as beautiful as goddesses, enough to outshine all the flowers in the world. However, from their appearance and gazes, it was quite evident that one of them was mature and steady-minded, while the other was mischievous and childish. Sister Xiyu, there's still one more day before we get back to the Mo clan. It has been quite a few years since I've seen father. I sure do miss him. I want to return as soon as possible. I wonder if he'll like the gift I've prepared for him, the childish woman said crisply. There was sense of yearning on her face. The woman who had been referred to as Xiyu smiled. She said, Father loves you so much, so how can he dislike the gift you've spent so much time and effort to prepare for him? Though, Mo Yen, the young master of the Automo's sword sect, proposed marriage with you a few years ago. What do you think of it? Humph, I never want to be a couple with that young master. Sister Xiyu, you have no idea. I hate him. He makes me feel uncomfortable all over whenever I see him. I'll refuse with my life if you want me to become a couple with him. Mo frowned as she pouted. She revealed a sliver of uncontainable disgust when the young master of the Automo's sword sect was mentioned. Now that the Liu family and Ando clan are getting closer and closer, it'll be bad for us if we don't forge alliances ourselves. Father agrees to your marriage with the young master because he wants to rope them in. After all, they also have a god, Xiyu sighed gently. She was filled with helplessness. I don't care. I simply refuse to marry that young master. Mo Yen snorted gently. She was headstrong. Suddenly, Mo Yan's eyes narrowed. Staring at the ground below, she said, Sister Mo, you look. There are 2 injured people there. I can sense that they're still alive. Let's go and help them. Look at how they're all covered in blood. They're so pitiful. Mo Yen could not bear the sight, and her eyes became filled with some pity and sympathy. Xiyu glanced down calmly, but she did nothing. Instead, she said to Mo Yen, Mo Yen, have you forgotten what I said before again? There are fights and deaths everywhere in the saints' world. The ties between people, whether good or bad, are never as simple as you imagine them to be. If you travel around the saints' world in the future, you'll see things like this even more often. It's not that you shouldn't save people, but there are just some people who won't show any gratitude for you saving them at all and will even stab you in the back when the opportunity arises. There are some people who might even bring trouble to you and the clan if you save them. Mo Yen clung onto Shiyu's arm and said like a spoilt child, Okay, I get it. But Sister Shiyu, they really look so pitiful. They're bleeding so much, and it's not safe out there. If they lay there, they'll definitely be eaten by some beasts. Let's help them. At most, we can leave after they've recovered. Not to mention, weren't you saved from outside by Father as well? Shiyu poked Mo Yan's forehead heavily and said, You're hopeless, but that was an exception. Chapter 1673. The Mo clan. The flying vehicle slowly descended, stopping 100 meters above Jian Chen and Xin Jian. 2 guards in black clothes immediately leapt down. One of them glanced past the space rings on Jian Chen and Shen Jian's finger, and a sliver of greed flashed through his eyes. He murmured, You 2 sure are lucky for our young lady to come across you. With that, the guard grabbed Shen Jian by his clothes and lifted him from the ground. He handled Shen Jian extremely roughly. The other guard directly went to remove Jian Chen's space ring. However, as soon as he touched the space ring, the guard carrying Shen Jian pressed his hand onto the other guard's shoulder. He said plainly, It's not like you don't understand our young miss. You'll make her angry like this. The guard who tried to take Jian Chen's space ring pulled back his hand reluctantly. He directly grabbed Jian Chen by the collar and lifted him, before returning to the vehicle with the other guard. How are their injuries? Are they heavy? Will they cause any future problems? As soon as Jian Chen and Shen Jian arrived on the vehicle, Mo Yen asked from one side in concern. Young miss, the 2 of them are quite injured, but they are still breathing. They shouldn't be dead. One of the guards replied politely. Shiyu calmly observed Jian Chen and Shen Jian for a while. Her calm gaze seemed to be able to penetrate many things, allowing her to completely check through Jian Chen and Shen Jian's wounds. Afterwards she frowned. They're even more heavily injured than I imagined. Even with the best medicine, they'll need quite some time to recover. Take them to the main cabin for now. Yes, miss, the 2 guards replied politely, before disappearing with Jian Chen and Shen Jian. Jian Chen and Shen Jian lay in the cabin of the vehicle. No one paid any attention to them, nor did anyone mind their presence, almost as if they were transparent to the several dozen people on the vehicle. Aside from Mo Yen, who had come to visit them out of curiosity and had fed them some medicine, no one else came. After a day of flight, the vehicle finally stopped outside a huge estate. The estate was majestic and grand, with 2 words written fancily above the main entrance, Mo Clan. There were quite a few guards on patrol both inside and outside the clan, while the guards were either Saint Emperors or at the Origin Realm. The Mo clan was clearly quite a powerful clan to be able to have Origin Realm experts as guards. Ha ha ha, my Yenner has finally returned. How have you benefited from training outside this time? As a vigorous voice rang out, a handsome man in blue robes walked through the air. He directly arrived in the vehicle as he looked at Mo Yen and Shiyu in adoration. Greetings to the Patriarch. Greetings to Father. The guards and Shiyu on the vehicle all bowed towards the man. Dad, I missed you so much. Mo Yen directly threw herself at the middle-aged man and tightly embraced him. The middle-aged man laughed aloud. He was still with love. With one hand on Mo Yen, he looked at Shiyu and asked gently, how's Yenner been in the past few years outside? Mo Yan's ear perked up, and she immediately turned her head. She looked at Shiyu pitifully with a pleading gaze. Shiyu rubbed her temples painfully when she saw how Mo Yen acted. She glared back at her viciously, before saying, "Father, although the results from Mo Yan's training this time are not ideal, she has still improved quite a lot. It's just that Mo Yan is too kind. She even saved 2 unknown people in the journey out this time." Mo Yan immediately raised her head towards the middle-aged man when she heard that. She said pitifully, "Father, the 2 of them were so miserable. They were lying on the ground, covered in blood. If I didn't save them, they would have been eaten by beasts. How could I just leave them to die?" The middle-aged man rubbed Mo Yan's head lovingly and smiled. "Since Yenner has saved them, let's have them settle down in the clan for now. But Yenner, you have to remember to not always save anyone who collapses your way. Do you understand?" "I understand. I knew that father is the best." Mo Yan immediately smiled happily. Just like that, Jian Chen and Shen Jian were taken into the Mo clan. The 2 of them were arranged into rooms of lower quality. Servants of the Mo clan normally occupied these rooms. Soon after Jian Chen had been taken to his room, he slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was filled with weakness and exhaustion. Half a day earlier, he had already recovered his consciousness, except he was simply too weak. Basically, all the power of his soul had been drained, and he needed to recover as soon as possible, which was why he chose to fake unconsciousness, so he could recover during that time. He heard everything in the conversation between Mo Yan and the Mo clan patriarch before. The Mo clan. Jian Chen looked around and murmured. He inspected the wounds on himself, before immediately circulating his chaotic force to recover and regenerate his powdered bones. As he was unconscious before, Jian Chen was unable to push the regeneration of his chaotic body to its limits, so he was still extremely heavily injured. However, as soon as Jian Chen circulated his chaotic force, the regeneration of the chaotic body was demonstrated immediately. His pulverized organs and bones regrew at a visible rate. However, as Jian Chen did not want to reveal the fact that he was a Radiant Saint Master in the Mo clan, he did not use Radiant Saint Force to heal this time. A day later, all his bones had recovered, allowing him to regain his mobility. He directly sat up from his bed and continued to heal. At the same time, the power of his soul gradually recovered as well, except it was as slow as a snail compared to the regeneration of his body. As for Shen Jian, he remained by Jian Chen's side. He was still unconscious. The 2 of them shared a stone bed. Jian Chen and Shen Jian were like a drop of water in the ocean. They did not raise any attention, and at the same time, no one came to check on them. It was like no one remembered them anymore in the Mo clan. Jian Chen was more than happy about the situation because without any disturbances, he could recover in the shortest time possible. As long as he recovered, he could deal with any dangers he encountered in the clan. "I used the twin swords when I lost my mind, so that ancestor of the Lu family must die. Although he won't know about the swords as a mere god, he's still a problem." Jian Chen secretly recalled his battle against the ancestor of the Lu family as he healed. He made up his mind. He had to kill the ancestor of the Lu family. Lu Fei stole the clan treasure of the Lu family. Just what is the Lu family's treasure? Healing is of the utmost importance right now, so I'll check through Lu Fei's space ring once I fully recover, Jian Chen murmured to himself. At this moment, a series of footsteps rang out from outside. Soon afterwards, the door to Jian Chen's room was pushed open. Mo Yan stood outside in a luxurious white dress. She looked inside curiously with her large eyes. "Oh, you're awake." Mo Yan stared at Jian Chen on the bed in surprise. Jian Chen had not cleaned away the blood on him yet, so it had already dried up on him, making him seem all bloody. However, Mo Yan did not find it terrifying at all. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes and got off the bed. He clasped his fist towards Mo Yan and said, "I am Jian Chen. Thank you for saving me." Mo Yan stared at Jian Chen in shock. She pointed at him as she stuttered. Why, you can actually stand. Sister Shiyu said that you were very heavily injured, where even all your bones vanished. Even with high-quality medicine, it's impossible for you to recover so easily." It has only been a day." "Thank you for your concern, young miss. Maybe because the medicine I used was of a rather high grade, so I was able to recover so quickly," Jian Che smiled. Any person could check through his wounds and tell, so he could not hide it even if he tried. As a result, he directly attributed all his healing to medicine, without trying to hide much. Chapter 1674. Doubt. Oh, no wonder you healed so quickly. So you still had high-grade medicine on you. Mo Yan understood. She tilted her head and carefully observed Jian Chen, before continuing, I can't sense any presence from you at all, so your cultivation must not be very great. How can you have such great medicine with such weak cultivation? It looks like you're not simple. A gleam of light flashed through Mo Yan's eyes and a cunning look appeared. She glanced at Jian Chen with other intentions as if Jian Chen was not a person but a huge treasure. Jian Chen could tell from a single glance that Mo Yan was still an inexperienced girl. He smiled, Miss. You are overestimating me. I obtained this medicine by accident when I entered the dwelling of a senior. Although the medicine is very effective, I only had one pill. Ah, you only had one of those pills. And I had planned on exchanging some of them from you so I could give them to Dad. Mo Yan became disappointed. Jian Chen laughed aloud when he heard that. It's quite rare for a young lady like you to be so filial. To thank you for your kindness, I'll definitely gift it to you if I come across any other similar recovery pills. Really? Mo Yan's eyes lit up and immediately became interested. Really, Jian Chen swore. Mo Yan, how many times have I told you that you can't just trust what others say? How can you be like this? Humph. How can those high-grade recovery pills be obtained so easily? Every single one of them is priceless, while the dwelling of a senior you mentioned is just a groundless statement. Even if a senior's dwelling was present before us right now, we probably won't be able to enter it. A rather cold voice rang out from outside as soon as Jian Chen finished talking. Shi Yu entered the room silently as she spoke. She wore loose white clothes, while her beautiful face was rather cold. Her eyes, limpid like the water in autumn, stared at Jian Chen rather sharply as if she wanted to understand his ins and outs completely. Behind her were two black-clothed guards. They both possessed strength at the origin realm, and they stared at Jian Chen without any particular expression. Sister Shi Yu, you've come too? Mo Yan immediately ran to her side and stuck out her tongue mischievously. Shi Yu glared at Mo Yu viciously before saying to Jian Chen, It doesn't matter who you are or why you're injured. Mo Yan saved you, so I do not wish to see you abuse her. Miss Mo Yan really is a kind-hearted person. However, I, Jian Chen, am not someone who ignores those who show me kindness. I will never forget the kindness you showed me. If I have the opportunity in the future, I will definitely return it. Farewell. With that, Jian Chen lifted the unconscious Xin Jian and was about to leave the Mo clan. Although he had not fully recovered from his injuries and was not in peak condition, he still had some ability to protect himself. After leaving the Mo clan, he could use Radiant Saint Force to speed up his healing, and he would recover even faster than in the Mo clan. Oi, you're still injured, so how can you leave? It's so dangerous outside, and you're so weak. It'll be very difficult for you to survive if you leave. Seeing how Jian Chen wanted to leave, Mo Yan did not allow him. She directly stood in the doorway and blocked his path with her arms. In the past, my dad saved Sister Shi Yu from outside, and before long, she broke through to deity, becoming one of the 6 elders of the Mo clan. What Dad did back then earned him the praise from great-grandfather. Although I'm not counting on the two of you to be as outstanding as Sister Shi Yu now that I've saved you from outside after so much trouble, I still did something that was the same as what my dad did in the past. This is also my first time saving someone, so how can I let you leave like this? Mo Yan said sadly. She was in very low spirits. She then said to Shi Yu, Sister Shi Yu, do you think that I'm really useless? When Dad saved someone in the past, he was praised by great-grandfather so many times, yet now that I've saved someone, they're in a hurry to leave right after waking up. Shi Yu looked at Mo Yan and felt a headache. Before Mo Yan had been born into the Mo clan, only a few people knew about her identity in the Mo clan. However, after she was born, she basically told everyone in the Mo clan about Shi Yu's origins with her large mouth, such that basically everyone in the clan knew now. However, Shi Yu just could not muster any anger when looking at the sad Mo Yan. She had watched Mo Yan grow up. Although they were not related by blood, she had already begun to treat Mo Yan as her own sister long ago. You should stay and recover in the Mo clan. It's not too late for you to leave after you've recovered. Don't let Mo Yan's kindness go to waste, Shi Yu said to Jian Chen. Jian Chen hesitated with that. He really did not plan on staying in the Mo clan, as it would just get in the way of his healing. However, when he saw how dejected Mo Yan had become, he did not really want Mo Yan's kindness to go to waste, so he just agreed, if that's the case, I'll be disturbing you for a few more days. Mo Yan immediately beamed. After exchanging a few more words casually with Jian Chen, she left. The patriarch of the Mo clan sat before a desk in a study room within the depths of the Mo clan. He read the book in his hand with great interest, while Xiyu sat casually opposite of him. "Father, I feel like the two people that Mo Yen saved aren't as simple as they seem," said Xiyu. "Oh. Tell me about it. In what areas do you think that they're not as simple as they seem?" The patriarch asked calmly as if he did not care too much about the conversation at all. "That person called Jian Chen heals just too quickly. I checked his wounds earlier, and they were extremely severe. Even with high-grade recovery pills, it'll take a very long time to heal. Yet he has almost made a full recovery in just a single day. Although there are some recovery pills of an extremely high grade that can achieve something like that, they're priceless. It's impossible for those pills to appear on someone who hasn't even reached godhood," said Xiyu. She could not tell Jian Chen's exact strength, but just from his presence, she could discern roughly that Jian Chen's strength should have been at reciprocity and not godhood. This was because she herself was a deity. She could not sense any of the pressure that a deity possessed from Jian Chen. As for being a god, Xiyu had not even considered it, as gods were existences who could hold the position of ancestor in clans like the Mo clan. As for Shen Jian, she discerned his strength to be peak reciprocity with a single glance. There are quite a few people in the saints' world who come across fortuitous encounters, so there's no need to worry too much about this. Since they've been saved by Yenner, we can keep them in the clan for now. They can leave once they fully recover. Otherwise, it'll make Yenner unhappy, the patriarch said plainly. "That was what I was thinking," said Xiyu. At this moment, the patriarch put down the book in his hand gently. His face became filled with helplessness, and he sighed gently. "What does Yenner think of the engagement with the young master of the Automo's sword sect?" "Father, Mo Yen is very firm with her decision. She'd rather die than marry him." Xiyu also sighed gently. She too was filled with helplessness. The patriarch of the Mo clan walked to the window and stared at the garden outside. He said in a soft voice, "Actually, I don't want Yenner to marry the young master either because he's completely unworthy of our Yenner. It's just that the Lu family and Ando clan have just gotten far too close. They'll have an alliance formed between the two of them at any time. We're forced to band together with others as well, or we won't be able to last much longer here." Xiyu became dejected. She said with self-blame, "Sorry, father. It's all because of me. It was me who brought danger to the Mo clan." The patriarch shrugged. Since you call me father, don't mention things like this ever again. You are the pride of our Mo clan. With your talent, you'll become a god in just a few thousand years, or even just a few centuries. It's just a pity that the Lu family and Ando clan refused to give you this opportunity to grow. It's all my fault. I failed to keep this matter a secret. Chapter 1675. The Dong'an Province. "Father, what do we do next? Do we have to force Mo Yen to marry that young master for the clan?" Xiyu asked. Her face was filled with sorrow and helplessness. She had watched Mo Yen grow up, so the two of them were like sisters. She really did not wish to see Mo Yen marry the young master of the Automo's sword sect. She would not have cared if Mo Yen liked the young master, but she completely disliked him. She loathed him. The patriarch of the Mo clan stood by the window as he stared outside. His gaze was deep, and he said, "Let's try to persuade Yenner. If Yenner really insists on refusing, we'll give up on the marriage." "Father, then what do we do if the Lu family and the Ando clan band together against us?" Xiyu asked in worry. A determined gleam of light immediately flashed through the patriarch's eyes with that. He said coldly, "The Lu family and Ando clan want to band together against us. Although part of the reason is because of your talent, so they want to prevent you from becoming a god, the main reason is still this treasure. This treasure has been secretly kept by our three clans for so many years. Since they want to break the rules and obtain our part of it, we can only go down together with them. Since they don't want us to obtain their part, we can't let them obtain our part either." With that, Xiyu became startled. She stared at the patriarch in disbelief and said, "Father, are you going to, correct? Once the news about God King Duanmu's jade breaks out, you should know what kind of uproar would result from it. At that time, let alone all the clans in the Dong'an province, even the countless experts across the entire divine kingdom of Pingtian will rush over. Who do the Lu family and Ando clan think they are in the face of all those high-level clans? I just hope that the Lu family and Ando clan won't force me to do that." Jian Chen healed slowly in the Mo clan. Although he did not possess any status in the Mo clan, he did not mind at all. In his eyes, the Mo clan was just a stop for him. He planned on leaving once Shen Jian healed. Shen Jian only slowly woke up 3 days later. Very soon, he understood the situation from Jian Chen. Then he immediately devoted himself to healing. During that period of time, Mo Yen had delivered some medicine. Although they were not extremely effective, Jian Chen still accepted them, before using them all on Shen Jian so that he could heal faster. Jian Chen learnt some basic information about the region he was in from Mo Yen as Shen Jian healed. In the surrounding radius of 10 million kilometers, there were a total of 4 major organizations. The 4 organizations were the Mo clan, Lu family, Ando clan, and Automo's sword sect. Each organization possessed an ancestor who was a god and reigned across a large expanse of land. There were various smaller clans in the lands, all subsidiaries of the 4 organizations. They would offer up some treasures or various resources every 1,000 years. Beyond the Mo clan, Lu family, Ando clan, and Automo's sword sect was the Dong'an province. The Dong'an province was the name of the region, spanning a range of several 100 million kilometers. The 4 organizations all belonged to the Dong'an province. Jian Qin, can you ask which plane this is among the 49 major planes of the Saints' world? Or which major planet it is of the 81 major planets? Fairy Hao Yu's voice rang out in Jian Chen's head. Jian Chen immediately asked Mo Yen, but she became confused after she heard the question. She said, "What 49 major planes? And what are these 81 major planets? I've never heard of them." Looks like she doesn't know much. She doesn't even know about the 49 planes and 81 planets. It looks like we'll have to ask the patriarch of the Mo clan if we want to know where we are, or even ask that god in the Mo clan. Only after confirming where we are can I find where the moon god hall is, Fairy Hao Yu said regretfully. At the same time, only several tens of million kilometers away in the Lu family, the ancestor of the Lu family sat there as he healed with lingering fear. His pale face was completely sunken. The treasure of my Lu family isn't that easy to steal. It doesn't matter who is behind you. I'll never forgive you. And that traitor Lu Fei. If it were not for the fact that your soul was wiped out, I definitely would have siphoned away your soul and tortured you in the most brutal method possible, the ancestor of the Lu family said through gritted teeth. He radiated with a heavy killing intent. Suddenly, the ancestor raised his hand and began drawing on the ground. Very soon, he drew Jian Chen and Shen Jian's appearances according to his memory. At the same time, he dripped a droplet of blood into Jian Chen and Shen Jian's images. Immediately, their presences appeared on the images. The blood came from the battle a few days ago when their blood had splashed onto the ancestor of the Lu family. He made use of the blood right now and made it into something crucial to finding the 2 of them. Very soon, the ancestor of the Lu family dug up the tablet of stone with their images from the ground. With a wave of his hand, the tablet was taken out of the room. At the same time, he said in a dignified voice, "Send everyone everywhere to find traces of these 2 people. Once you find any news, report to me immediately." "Yes, ancestor." A heavy voice rang out from outside and a black figure left with the stone tablet. He used a special secret technique to replicate many versions of the tablet, and every single one of them possessed Jian Chen and Shen Jian's presences. In the Saints' world, differentiating people did not just require knowing the appearance but the presence as well. This was as the population in the Saints' world was just too tremendous. There were obviously quite a few people who seemed exactly the same, so when that happened, presence was needed to distinguish between different people. Humans had the presence of humans, demons had the presence of demons, and immortals obviously had the presence of immortals. Everyone had a different presence, so there was no need to worry about finding the wrong person. Ando clan, Mo clan, and the Automo's sword sect, I don't wish the person behind the duo to be any of you, or I'll definitely wipe out your entire clan. Even if the people behind the 2 of them are one of the more powerful clans in the Dong'an province, I won't let you have it either, the ancestor of the Lu family said in a gruff voice. Afterwards, a jade bottle immediately appeared with a flip of his hand. The ancestor became conflicted as he stared at the jade bottle. He murmured, "I'm very heavily injured. I've injured my very foundation, so even high-grade pills won't allow me to recover without a lot of time. If I don't heal quickly, it might even leave behind permanent, future problems. It looks like I can only consume this pill earlier than I planned. God damn it, This is the most valuable thing I obtained from God King Duanmu's tomb. Chapter 1676. Shen Jian steps into godhood. The ancestor of the Lu family stared at the jade bottle for quite some time before he opened it in a pained manner. He poured out a white pill the size of an eye. The entire room immediately became filled with a heavy fragrance with its appearance. Just a whiff of it was enough for people to clear their minds and feel at ease, filling them with a comfortable feeling all over. Clearly, the pill was of a very high grade. Just the fragrance it gave off demonstrated some recovery effects. The effects would be even more evident if it was consumed. The ancestor of the Lu family looked at the white pill in his hand reluctantly before closing his eyes and consuming it without any more hesitation. When he consumed it, his heart throbbed. He had always treated the pill as something that he could use to save his own life because the pill was of an extremely high grade. It would even possess the effects to bring him, a god, back from near death. It was equivalent to a second life, so he did not want to waste it like this. The government of the Dong'an province reigned over the surrounding 100 million kilometers. They possessed an extremely high status and all the clans in their territory had to offer up items periodically. There was a tremendous city erected on a vast expanse of flat land in the very center of the Dong'an province. The city was immensely majestic, where its city walls stood several hundred meters tall. From afar, it seemed like a screen that was connected to the sky, while the walls stretched as far as the eyes could see. This city was the provincial city of the Dong'an province, and it was also called Dong'an. The 7 capital cities on the Tianyuan continent were ants in comparison to the city. They were on 2 completely different levels. The provincial city was representative of the Dong'an province. Basically, most of the clans that possessed a certain amount of power resided in the city, leading to quite some complicated politics between the clans. No one knew just how many clans were in the city. At this moment, a middle-aged man with a dignified appearance dressed in luxurious clothes sat within a grand hall. He drank tea at ease within a huge manor in the city. He was being served politely by 2 female servants. Xueqi greets the patriarch. At this moment, a black-clothed man appeared silently before the middle-aged man and said politely. A gleam of light flashed through the middle-aged man's eyes with Xueqi's appearance. Even with his mental fortitude, he could not help but waver inside. A sliver of eagerness and anticipation appeared in his eyes. He dismissed the 2 female servants before he cautiously cast down a barrier around them. Only then did he say, "Xueqi, have you obtained it? Have you dealt with Lu Fei?" "Patriarch, I've remained at the agreed location for several days, and I haven't seen Lu Fei at all," Xueqi replied politely. "What?" The middle-aged man's face sank and his gaze sharpened in that instance. He said heavily, "Have you heard anything from the Lu family?" "Patriarch, the matter of Lu Fei's betrayal has been broadcasted from the Lu family, but Lu Fei didn't seem to escape. He seemed to have been killed by the ancestor of the Lu family," replied Xueqi. "Lu Fei is useless. I gave him the formation disc that was enough to keep an early god trapped for 2 days. It was more than enough for him to escape to where we would meet up. Lu Tian still caught him in the end. Not only have I wasted such a valuable formation disc, but the Lu family is cautious now as well. It has become even more difficult to obtain that thing from the Lu family now." The middle-aged man was flustered. Originally as the patriarch, it was impossible for him to lose his composure. However, Lu Fei's matter was just too important to him, so he struggled to remain calm. After a moment of hesitance, Xueqi continued, "Patriarch, I've also discovered another matter. Recently, the Lu family has sent out a large number of people to look for 2 unknown people secretly." Xueqi passed a drawing to the middle-aged man and said, "I obtained this from killing a clansman of the Lu family." The middle-aged man unfurled the drawing and had a look. It depicted Jian Chen and Xin Jian. After a moment of silence, the middle-aged man ordered Xueqi, "Go find out why the Lu family is looking for these 2 people. Additionally, arrange people to pay attention to all movements from the Lu family. Remember to move secretly. We can't afford other organizations in the Dong'an province to discover what we're doing." "This one understands. What about the Mo clan and the Ando clan?" Xueqi asked. "We've even failed with the Lu family, which we had the greatest confidence in. If we move against the Mo clan and the Ando clan, our chances of success will be even lower. It's fine that we failed though. I am only worried that it'll raise the attention of other organizations in the Dong'an province once we cause too much activity. It'll be awful for us, so there's no need to hurry about the Mo clan and Ando clan. Shen Jian currently sat on the stone bed in the servants' quarters. Meanwhile, Jian Chen sat beside him as he went through Lu Fei's space ring. There was quite a lot of things in Lu Fei's space ring, but most of them were cheap items useless to Jian Chen. After Fairy Hao Yu inspected a few of the items, they were all regarded as low quality or just subpar materials. They were not worth a single dime. However, Jian Chen did find some useful things. He took away all the medicinal pills of lower grades from Lu Fei's space ring. He also found some truth tier cultivation methods and battle skills, as well as Lu Fei's personal notes for cultivation. Jian Chen only glanced through Lu Fei's notes before deeming them as trash. He threw them away. The truth tier cultivation methods and battle skills were useless to Jian Chen as well, as they were only of the first grade. That was the lowest grade among the truth tier. Jian Chen, you can't go without divine crystals in the saint's world. Divine crystals are condensed from the purest origin energy. Not only can they be used for cultivation, but they're also a form of currency in the saint's world. You can use these useless cultivation methods and battle skills to exchange for some divine crystals. Fairy Hao Yu's voice rang out in Jian Chen's head. Divine crystals? Jian Chen's interest was piqued when he heard that. He immediately threw the cultivation methods aside and with a flip of his hand, he removed a thumb-sized crystal from Lu Fei's space ring. The crystal glimmered with light as it hid some pure origin energy. Is this the divine crystals you're speaking of? Jian Chen asked. Correct, that's a divine crystal. Divine crystals are split into supreme grade, high grade, mid-grade, and low grade. The one in your hand is only a low-grade divine crystal, said Fairy Hao Yu. Jian Chen looked through Lu Fei's space ring carefully and discovered 1,000 low-grade divine crystals. There was not a single mid-grade divine crystal. At this moment, Jian Chen's face changed. He removed a square box from Lu Fei's space ring and scrutinized it. He had no idea what the box's material was. It was extremely tough, and it was covered with formations, radiating with powerful pulses of energy. The box was so tough that even gods would struggle to break through its defenses. What's inside this box? Is it the treasure of the Lu family? Jian Chen said as he examined the box. However, at this very moment, a powerful pulse of energy suddenly appeared from beside him. With it was a presence that surged. Joy flickered through Jian Chen's eyes. He shoved the box back into his space ring casually and exited the room instantly with a flash. Soon after Jian Chen left the room, a layer of formations appeared around the servants' quarters. They were ordinary formations, cast down to protect the structure there. They possessed a certain level of toughness, where even late reciprocity experts were unable to smash through them. However, just when the formations appeared, they immediately began to collapse and shatter. Afterwards, the quarters where Jian Chen stayed in was reduced to dust from a powerful pulse of energy, revealing Shen Jian who sat on the stone bed. Shen Jian had finally begun to break through to godhood after healing. Chapter 1677. Shaking up the Mo clan. The powerful presence and ripples of energy from Shen Jian's breakthrough spread across the entire Mo clan, shocking everyone present. At that moment, whether it was the lowly servants or the prestigious members of the upper echelon, they all put down what they were doing and looked in Shen Jian's direction. Uncontainable envy and joy appeared on their faces. It's godhood. It's godhood. Our clan actually has someone else who has broken through to godhood. This is fantastic. With every expert at godhood, our clan will become slightly stronger. Many members of the upper echelon voiced their surprise and joy as they flew towards Shen Jian. Aside from the patriarch's residence in the Mo clan, 6 other halls were equally majestic. Every single hall had Origin Realm experts as guards. The presence of Origin Realm experts as guards was more than enough to indicate the incredibly high statuses of the owners of the halls. They were the godhood experts of the Mo clan, as well as the elders of the clan. At that moment, the eyes of the 6 elders in the clan snapped open simultaneously. They all looked towards Shen Jian's direction in interest. One of the females among them was Shi Yu. There's actually someone who has attained godhood. Fantastic, our Mo clan has gained another elder. I wonder who has broken through, Shi Yu murmured, before immediately standing up and making her way outside. She wanted to see who was breaking through. The 5 other elders at godhood emerged from the 5 other halls with Shi Yu. It was quite a significant matter to the clan for someone to reach godhood. After all, there were only a few godhood experts with the entire clan in perspective, even when including the patriarch. As a result, the birth of each godhood expert was a joyous occasion for the Mo clan. That's strange. Why does the presence of the person breaking through come from that direction? If I remember correctly, that's the servants' quarters. The elders who had just emerged became doubtful because even early reciprocity cultivators possessed their own space to cultivate in the Mo clan. It was impossible for them to be arranged to the servants' quarters. Godhood experts, even just deities, were elders in the Mo clan. They were peak experts, while the Origin Realm cultivators formed the main force in the clan. Even though many Origin Realm experts did not possess any particular status, it was impossible for them to be arranged to live in the servants' quarters. Xueqi stared in Shen Jian's direction, and a thought popped into her head. She immediately became doubtful, and her face showed some disbelief. She thought, it can't be him, right? Sister Xueqi, has someone broken through to godhood? Fantastic, our clan has gained another godhood expert. Sister Xueqi, let's go see which uncle's broken through. Mo Yen ran over from afar excitedly. Joy filled her face. Xueqi nodded before making her way in Shen Jian's direction doubtfully with Mo Yen. By now, a large number of people had already gathered around Shen Jian. There were servants, guards, as well as a few members of the upper echelon who managed to make it over first. They all stood in the distance silently. All their gazes were fixated on Shen Jian. They all revealed a look of surprise on their faces. The members of the upper echelon, in particular, felt extremely confused inside. Old Zhou, who is this? Why have I never seen him before? And he lives in the servants' quarters. Since he has so much strength, why does he live there? I was thinking of asking you the exact same thing, but you beat me to it. A godhood expert has actually appeared in the servants' area. If word makes it out, many of the authoritative members communicated with each other secretly. They stared at Shen Jian in amazement as they were filled with questions. Jian Chen stood to one side with his arms crossed. He had managed to make his way into the crowd, so he did not raise too much attention. However, he was currently completely focused on Shen Jian. He silently observed the movements in the surroundings. If there were anyone brave enough to get in the way of Shen Jian's breakthrough, he would move without any hesitation against them. Very soon, the 6 godhood experts of the Mo clan arrived as well. With their arrival, the surrounding people parted to create a path for them. They all looked towards them politely, and even a few of the authoritative members of the clan behaved in the same manner. Ah, isn't he the person I saved? How can he be the one breaking through to godhood? Mo Yan's mouth immediately dropped in shock when she saw the person breaking through was Shen Jian. Disbelief filled her face. Xueqi said nothing. She looked at Shen Jian with mixed emotions. She had never thought that Shen Jian would break through to godhood. Although she had already discerned Shen Jian's strength to be at the peak of reciprocity when Mo Yen saved Shen Jian and Jian Chen initially, she did not take it to heart. This was because there was a wall that was extremely difficult to overcome between the Origin Realm and godhood. Comprehending the laws of the world to obtain the key to godhood was countless times more difficult than going from sainthood to the Origin Realm. Even among 100 peak reciprocity experts, there would rarely be a single person who could reach godhood. It was exactly because of the difficulty that Xueqi did not pay particular attention to Shen Jian's cultivation level, as there were plenty of peak reciprocity experts in their Mo clan. The 5 other godhood elders of the Mo clan looked around. A strange expression covered all their faces. One of them, a burly bare-chested man, watched everything unfold with no idea how to react. He smiled gently. I never thought that the sir who has just broken through would live here. What a surprise! The patriarch of the Mo clan arrived as well. He knew about Jian Chen and Shen Jian's existences. Originally, he had only allowed them to stay temporarily at the clan because of his beloved daughter, and he would get them to leave after they recovered. But now that Shen Jian had broken through, the patriarch began to feel conflicted. However, he made up his mind very soon, and determination flowed through his eyes. If it was just a peak reciprocity expert, his clan could afford to ignore him, but his clan had to try to rope him to their side if it was a godhood expert. Whether it was the patriarch or the 6 elders, they all remained by Shen Jian's side as he broke through. They watched over him without taking a single step away. No one left, nor did they cause any activity to disturb Shen Jian. Jian Chen saw this in the crowd, and he could not help but nod secretly. However, he remained just as cautious as before, ready to protect Shen Jian during his breakthrough. Chapter 1678. Roping them in. Several hours later, Shen Jian's breakthrough finally came to a close successfully. As his powerful presence was gradually withdrawn, he suddenly snapped open his eyes. The moment Shen Jian snapped open his eyes, a light flashed through his eyes. It bore an extremely sharp sword intent. When the 6 elders of the Mo clan saw it, their hearts all trembled uncontrollably without any exception. Shen Jian's gaze alone made them feel pressured. The patriarch of the Mo clan's eyes suddenly narrowed as well. His gaze towards Shen Jian underwent a drastic change as well. There was some sternness. This person is strong. Although he has only just broken through to early deity, there are probably very few early deities who are his opponent, thought the patriarch. Before Shen Jian could say anything, the Mo clan patriarch clasped his fist towards Shen Jian with a smile and said, "I am the patriarch of the Mo clan, O Yan. Congratulations, brother Shen Jian, on breaking through to godhood. From today onwards, our Dong'an province has gained a new godhood expert." The Mo clan patriarch spoke extremely politely. Coupled with his current expression and attitude, people who had no idea really would have believed that the patriarch and Shen Jian had met each other long ago and were quite close. Shen Jian responded to the patriarch by clasping his fist. "You flatter me, patriarch. There are quite a lot of godhood experts in the Dong'an province. I'm only someone who has reached godhood recently, so I'm nothing worth mentioning. I am sure I have caused quite some trouble with my brother over the past few days by recovering in your clan." The patriarch shrugged and said without caring much at all, "What trouble? Brother Shen Jian is too polite. It was just that my daughter Yenner isn't very sensible. She actually did not even notify me of your visit, so I couldn't receive you properly." As he said that, he glared at Mo Yen. Mo Yen stuck out her tongue and pulled a face at the patriarch. However, she was ecstatic inside. She had never thought that she would do the same thing as her father and save a godhood expert from outside. Shen Jian and the patriarch spoke some more. The patriarch became stern and said, "I truly am sorry for failing to receive you properly. May I ask brother Shen Jian which sect or clan you come from? That way, I can visit you in the future and personally make it up to you." Both Jian Chen and Shen Jian understood that the patriarch was probing into their backgrounds when they heard this question. "I may have to disappoint the patriarch. We've only arrived in the saints' world recently, so we don't belong to any organization," replied Shen Jian. The patriarch was surprised inside. He asked in amazement, "You've come to the saints' world recently? Does that mean you came from a lower world?" "Correct," Shen Jian replied. Shi Yu's eyes narrowed, clearly suspicious. The other godhood elders looked towards Shen Jian in surprise as well. The patriarch was overjoyed. He clasped his fist towards Jian Chen and Shen Jian and said, "If you are satisfied with my clan, why don't you stay in my clan for now? Although my clan isn't very big, we do have a god. And we have a stable footing in the Dong'an province." Jian Chen had never considered staying in the Mo clan for any longer. Now that Shen Jian had recovered and reached godhood, he was already prepared to leave the Mo clan with Shen Jian. Just when he wanted to decline the patriarch's invitation to stay, Shen Jian cut him off. "The two of us just happen to have nowhere to go. At the same time, we're unfamiliar with the saints' world, so if the patriarch doesn't mind, we can only trouble you for a few days longer." The patriarch was overjoyed inside. He clasped his hands without minding it at all. "It's not a problem, it's not a problem at all. It's not a problem no longer how long brother Shen Jian and Jian Chen plan on staying in our Mo clan." Just like that, Shen Jian and Jian Chen settled down in the Mo clan temporarily. Now that Shen Jian had reached godhood, his status was completely different from before. In order to show how much he cared for Shen Jian, the patriarch erected a 7th majestic hall in the Mo clan as a place for Shen Jian to cultivate. Only elders in the Mo clan usually own such a hall. Apart from that, the patriarch also arranged a group of Origin Realm experts as guards around his hall. Of course, he was not trying to spy on them. Rather, he wanted to emphasize Shen Jian's superior status in the clan as a godhood expert. Jian Chen and Shen Jian sat in front of each other within the 7th hall of the Mo clan. "I originally planned on leaving once you healed and go roam the outside world, but why did you choose to stay? Our comprehension of laws far exceeds our cultivation level, so our strength can be increased drastically as long as we have enough resources. Staying in the Mo clan will only delay our cultivation," Jian Chen asked in confusion. Every step after reaching godhood required the comprehension of laws. Both his and Shen Jian's way of the sword had reached the major achievement of sword origin, which was enough for them to become gods without any obstructions at all. They only lacked resources. Although they could increase their strength from absorbing the origin energy in the surroundings, their strength would progress at a much slower pace. Jian Chen, I chose to remain in the Mo clan because there are still people waiting for us in the lower world. Aside from increasing our strength, we have to gain a proper footing in the Saints' world during the 10 millennia we spend here so that we can pave a path for anyone else who comes up later on. The Mo clan is not a bad place for us to start, said Xin Jian. He looked towards Jian Chen and continued, at the same time, the problem on you still remains. Once you lose your mind, you won't be able to tell friend from foe. I won't be able to stop you, and I might even die at your hands. Jian Chen fell silent with that. He thought of the people waiting for him in the lower world. Not only were there his wives, but there was also his parents and his various good friends. Although he could come across a few fortuitous encounters by roaming the outside world, his life would also be in danger. He could die at any time. He did not mind dying, but if he died, it would become even more difficult for his wives and parents to survive once they came to the Saints' world. Apart from that, the lives of Shangguan Mu'er, newbies, Xiao Ling, Xiao Jin, the White Tiger, Rui Jin, Hong Lian, He Yu, and so on in the Bright Moon Divine Hall all lay with him. His death might also cause them to die. Jian Chen sighed inside. With a flip of his hand, a space ring appeared in his hand. He took out all the low-grade divine crystals that he had obtained from Lu Fei and said, if I want my chaotic body to break through again, I need a tremendous amount of energy. These divine crystals are useless to me, so you take them. We have to raise our strength as fast as possible right now. Shen Jian picked up the thumb-sized crystals and sensed the pure origin energy inside. His eyes immediately lit up, and he said, if there are enough divine crystals, I'll be able to reach mid-deity in a short amount of time. Chapter 1679. Maple Leaf City, you should require quite a lot of divine crystals to reach mid-deity. It shouldn't be easy to gather so much in a short period of time, Jian Chen said as he pondered. Then he took out a few old scrolls and said, apart from these divine crystals, I found some truth tier cultivation methods and battle skills in Lu Fei's space ring, but they're all of the first grade. Have a look if you need them. Shen Jian glanced past the scrolls and said, they're useless to me if they're only of the first grade. Let's get rid of them. We should be able to exchange some divine crystals for them. That was what I was planning. I've already done some research. There's quite a large city a few million kilometers away from the Mo clan. Let's sell these items tomorrow and get as many divine crystals as we can. Let's increase your strength as much as possible, and then go to the Lu family, said Jian Chen. The Lu family? You plan to wipe them out? Shen Jian asked. The two of them had almost died at the hands of the Lu family ancestor a few days ago, so he also bore hatred toward the Lu family. The origins of my twin swords are beyond ordinary. Once the news that I possess the two swords spreads across the Saints' world, I'll be doomed. During the battle against the ancestor of the Lu family, I used the swords against him when I lost my mind, so I have to kill the ancestor to stop him from spreading the news about my two swords, Jian Chen said coldly. Shen Jian nodded as if he understood. He could not help but think of the two swords Jian Chen carried on his back in the past. He felt extremely curious about them. He had no idea just how special the two simple-looking swords were, to actually make Jian Chen act so careful. The next day, a vehicle capable of flight, which was several hundred meters long, slowly rose up from the Mo clan and shot off into the distance. Jian Chen and Shen Jian stood beside each other with their arms crossed on the deck of the vehicle. They studied the vehicle with interest. There were several dozen guards on the vehicle apart from them. They were all at the origin realm. They were scattered across the vehicle, all filled with caution. The flying cultivators that they came across from time to time immediately showed fear and envy when they saw the setup of the vehicle. Without any hesitation, they avoided the vehicle. Originally, Jian Chen and Shen Jian planned to directly fly over to the city, but after learning that they planned to go out, the patriarch convinced them to use this vehicle. Not only was this vehicle capable of moving very fast, but it did not consume origin energy for travel. More importantly, riding the vehicle would further emphasize their identities. Using this for travel really is convenient. It's completely steered using formations, and it replenishes its energy by absorbing the origin energy in the surroundings automatically. During times of need, it can even activate a second set of formations and move even faster by burning divine crystals. Even deities would struggle to match its speed. Shen Jian studied the vehicle and said a word of praise. This vehicle is not cheap. Even though it's only a first-grade saint artifact, I heard from Mo Yen that it's over 100 times more expensive than other saint artifacts of the same grade. The entire Mo clan only has 2 such saint artifacts, said Jian Chen. His gaze became filled with desire. If he possessed a high-grade vehicle, would that mean that even god kings would struggle to catch up to him? It would be a treasure for fleeing. Of course, Jian Chen could only afford to think about it. High-grade vehicles would be incredibly expensive. There was no way he could purchase one. At the very least, he did not have the wealth for one right now. Maple Leaf City was the only large city in the surrounding radius of several tens of million kilometers. It was only a few million kilometers away from the Mo clan. Jian Chen and Shen Jian arrived outside Maple Leaf City very soon. They parked the vehicle from the Mo clan outside the city and got the several dozen guards to watch over it. The 2 of them entered Maple Leaf City without taking any guards with them. Maple Leaf City was huge. The entire city took up an area equal to the Jessen Kingdom on the Tianyuan continent. On such a large piece of land, many clans of various sizes had obviously appeared, dividing up all the land in the city. Before he had come, Jian Chen obtained a map of the city from the Mo clan, so he knew how the shops were divided in the city very well. As soon as they entered the city, they followed the busy main street and headed directly toward the center of the city. Many people sat on the sides of the street, laying out a few low-quality items. Various calls constantly rang out. Of course, the people who set up stalls on the streets of Maple Leaf City were not particularly powerful. Almost all of them were sainthood experts, and only other sainthood experts would use their items at most. Many shops would not buy such low-level items. As Jian Chen and Shen Jian made their way towards the center of the city, they would enter a few shops from time to time. Through the comparison of prices, they gained a rough understanding of how much their truth-tier cultivation methods and battle skills were worth. But to their joy, first-grade truth-tier cultivation methods were actually worth 10,000 low-grade divine crystals. The value of battle skills was even greater, reaching into the several tens of thousands. The value of these items surprised them. In the end, Jian Chen sold the cultivation methods and battle skills at a shop called Maple Leaf Pavilion. He obtained a total of over 100,000 low-grade divine crystals. At this moment, Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. He saw an immortal artifact sword. Even though it was only of the lowest grade, it had caught Jian Chen's interest. "Do you have any mid-grade saint artifact flying swords for sale?" Jian Chen asked. A sliver of surprise flashed through the old man's eyes that Jian Chen had just done business with. He studied Jian Chen and Shen Jian secretly and smiled. "We, the Maple Leaf Pavilion, are the largest group of shops in Maple Leaf City. We naturally have mid-grade saint artifact flying swords, and we have 2 of them. One is of the 4th grade, while the other is of the 5th. Do you wish to purchase one?" Saint artifacts were the same as immortal artifacts, possessing 3 divisions. Saint artifacts ranging from the 1st to 3rd grades were low quality, 4th to 6th grades were medium quality, while 7th to 9th grades were high quality. Apart from that, a few saint artifacts that had exceeded the 9th grade but had not reached the level of god artifacts were known as supreme quality saint artifacts. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.